Okay, we are live. Don't say any crazy shit. That's my job. This is episode 15 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, I work for Ungamers, one of the few survivors of whatever's happened there. We'll just leave it at that. Usual course, for some reason, is actually... Try turning your camera on and off again, because you're frozen for me now, Monte. So I may as well get this done now. So once we actually see his camera, that's when I'll introduce him. Okay, let's see. We're still waiting. Oh, there we go. Move a little bit so I can check that you're real. I know you have an incredibly stoic outward appearance where it's hard to tell if you're frozen or whether you're just deep in contemplation within the
people think I'm a statue
of your
all
own
the time.
Mind, you know, building cathedrals there, Monte. But yeah, we have to live in the real world. So anyway, my co-host, as always, is MonteCristo. And, well, here's the way I would describe him. He's the guy where every week he explains to me, like, why certain teams in LCS/NA have done so well and why other teams are so overrated and will fall off. And then every week we look at the standings and they're just identical again every week. And then everyone's like, is this just a show about you articulating your biases, Monte? But anyway, yeah, so hello, Monte.
Hi, I'm just here to be biased against TSM. That's what the fans tell me.
Yeah, Monte, I can't tell if your camera is actually frozen in. I'll tell you in a second. I'll just watch the stream and see if it works there. I think it might be all right. Right, so obviously our guest this time is sOAZ, also known as... Well, I like to just be polite, you know, and call him like a 3-time LCS split champion. But actually, he likes to also call himself that. Like, he actually tells people that he's a 3-time champion. And then if people say stuff like... excuse me, sOAZ, could I just politely ask why you don't do this pick in the top? He's like, I am a 3-time champion of LCS Europe. I am the best top player that has ever existed in Europe. I am more dedicated than you. And you know, it's quite astounding, you know, the confidence the young man has. So, salut, Paul.
Hey. No, I'm not really like this, but...
No, you're not, obviously. But let's start there.
I prefer to think of him as that guy who keeps fucking picking Yorrick, even when I keep telling him it's terrible.
Come on, the last game I played Yorrick, I didn't have any choice. I had to play a tank against Kog'Maw, Orianna, and Lulu top, and there was just nothing to play.
Try turning your cam back on and off again, Monte. We'll just keep talking now anyway. So if you have to be... I mean, luckily it's quite a good picture, so if you have to be static, okay. So let's just start there, actually. Let's start with what I kind of alluded to, which is probably... If I'd have said about 6 months ago, you know, oh, we're going to have... Well, I don't think the show existed, but whatever. If I'd said, like, we're going to have sOAZ on this show, people would be like, oh, it's interesting, you know, he's a really good player, like, he's playing a lot of good teams, like, experience. In fact, you know, Monte, like, the typical NA hater, Monte's probably going to, like, side with him and think, like, yeah, let's use this as an opportunity to, like, talk about how overrated Americans are or something. But then, in the meantime, we had this event called All Stars. Think of that name there, All Stars. It's like the best players in the world are going to go to this tournament. And everyone was loving it, sOAZ. They couldn't wait. Because you know what was going to happen? It was going to be the best teams in the whole world. But here's the problem. There was one downside. Unfortunately, through actually no error of the Riot themselves, this wasn't their fault at all. This circumstances happened where SK Telecom had qualified, even though they weren't the best team in Korea anymore. The Chinese team that went... Okay, they probably were the best team, but they had changed player over the split. The NA team, suddenly last minute, they lost their mid laner. The team from Southeast Asia is from Southeast Asia. And so there was one hope left for one of the best teams in the world. We needed Fnatic, the 3-time LCS European champions. They were going to come through. They were going to show us some world-class... Yeah.
Season 1 world champion and Season 3 semi-finalists.
I mean, Season 1 world champion, sort of in the way that...
I wasn't in the team yet.
Yeah, he wasn't in the team at the time, but Season 1 world championship, sort of in the way that, like, you know, someone can say, like, I ruled the world in, like, 8,000 BC, and it's like, yeah, but wasn't there, like, 100,000 people in the world? They're like, I ruled it. I ruled the whole world. I am as good as the British Empire. Like, that sort of level. But anyway, yeah, so I set this billing here, sOAZ, that this Fnatic team, listen, even if the other teams had weaknesses or something against them, this Fnatic team was going to show us the goods. They were going to show us one of the best teams in the world, right?
Well,
I like how we just start with this. It's like just throw him right to the wolves right away.
I just want to see what he's going to come up with.
I don't know. At this point, we are like probably well one or the best team of Europe, and we'll probably win against most of the NA teams as well. But I don't know. Koreans are just better, and probably are slightly better still right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. But here's the problem. Even if Fnatic did badly, I just thought to myself, like, okay, you got beaten by SK Telecom. That's obviously fair enough, especially in the playoffs. People will say, okay, the OMG result, maybe that was like you doing okay for the first part, and then the main result where people will laugh is they'll say the Cloud9 one was like you got beaten really bad, okay. But the thing is, I didn't think to myself like, oh, this is the worst. No, I never got outraged like this is the most this exhibition tournament. This is the most shocking display ever. This team needs to be whipped into shape. They don't know what they're doing. They've made a mockery out of the Western scene and the Enlightenment values of the Rosicrucianism. Like I never went this far, okay. But Monte here, somehow one day I just opened up Twitter and it was like Monte. It's like I walked into a room thinking that like, oh, Monte and sOAZ are in there having coffee, and then as I walk in, they have like a Mexican standoff with like guns pointed at each other, and they're like, "Fire, motherfucker! You wanna play the game?" like, like what happened there, sOAZ? So one day you just said something like, you know, people were criticizing you because Fnatic lost, and they said something along the lines of like, "Oh, Fnatic aren't dedicated," you know, like this is the problem with Europe. That something like that set you off, right? That was like the original story, sOAZ.
No, all the time that like Europe or any lose, they just need to find like stuff to say, just random stuff to say to them. But our game against C9, I remember like we had this game, but we just like completely threw it, and it was one of our big weakness at this time. Like we had great early game, but we couldn't like close up games somehow, and we are doing a lot better now. But yeah, at this time we are not that great.
Why I said what I said. I mean, I've been down, you know, talked about this before, but you know, I really like Fnatic and I really want to see the Western teams do well. And I think you guys are loaded with talent. I mean, you made the semifinals of Worlds last year, which is an awesome accomplishment for any Western team, I think. And so my issue with you guys was that not your performance. It's like, you know, sometimes you have bad tournaments. It was the perceived attitude from you guys going into that performance and the difference that I perceived between your world championship run last year when I was there. And, you know, I was talking to you guys all the time. I saw your staff was all there. You guys were working really hard. And then if we fast forward to All Stars and like Cyanide is like having interviews talking about getting drunk the night before. And I'm like, what happened between this? And you guys fired all your staff. I'm like, top 4 at Worlds, good staff, good dedication, fucking awesome drive. Like I said, I was hanging out with you guys all the time. You were just like really on point. Like I was really impressed. Fast forward to All Stars, you guys are like not doing so well at All Stars, and then there's all this other stuff, and you start this split off really poorly. And now you have a new coach, Aaron, and like it seems like, I mean, you guys had a great Super Week. I just perceive you guys as one of the best teams who has a really solid history of international competition. And so that's why I was like frustrated with you guys. Or not frustrated, more disappointed in how you came into that tournament and your attitude around it.
So let's start there. Yeah. So it's like if I go back in time for what Monte was saying there, he thought, you know, like it World's really good prep, everything's really good, seemed really dedicated. Like when you actually made the comment, which set Monte off, which is where you made this tweet where you said, like, we're the most dedicated team in Europe or something like that, right? It was somewhat along those lines. Like, what were you thinking of when you said that? Like, what were you thinking of what you meant by dedication, you
know? I don't know about Worlds. Like, we are really prepared for it and we practice a lot for it. But for All Stars, we probably practice like 2 times less or something, which still could have been fine, but we didn't put like the time that we put it at Worlds. It was different, and we are not on point in like game and how we wanted to play the game. So
well, okay, let me
All
put it
Stars
this
and
way.
Worlds was really different.
Like, it's one thing to lose, okay? You can lose. You could be the most prepared team in the world. You could even be on insane form. You could still have a really bad day and lose completely. So what I'm trying to get at here is when you said the comment like we're the most dedicated team. I think it was in Europe. You said Like, were you thinking
Yeah.
of like other LCS teams in Europe, and they practice similar hours to you or something? Were you thinking of particularly LCS before the tournament? Were you actually talking about that tournament? Like, we were prepared for that tournament? What were you kind of like pinpointing there?
Dedicated, I mean, like, to the game, there is a lot of like players or team which are like not that much dedicated about the game. Like, they go out during the weekend, during the week, not the weekend,
Okay.
and other kind of stuff. Like, I don't know, we just think day and night about League of Legends, and that's all.
So,
And I don't
actually,
think, like, I think most of the top teams in EU do that, but there is a lot of teams which are playing not that great and should focus more on LoL than other stuff.
So I just did an interview with Forgiven, and he actually told me that part of the thing that annoyed him when he was in League of LCS was he said that even some people that were on his team, like some of them halfway through the split, they would just like, they wouldn't be practicing very much, or they wouldn't be like going super hard trying to, because they kind of like had leveled out. Like, they know we're not going to win LCS, so they would just, people weren't practicing that much, or they were practicing a little bit. Or in Europe, how dedicated do you think the whole like top 8 is? Does everyone practice a similar amount of hours, do you think?
I don't think so. It depends really of the person. Like, for example, in your team, I can say like Reckless play a lot more solo queue than anyone else. But yearsa play a lot as well. But it really depends of the person. Like, if let's say I play 2 or 3 solo queue, which are really bad, I have like 2 or 3 trolls in my game. Then I play like 2 or 3 games like this. I don't really want to play anymore. It just depends of the solo queue I play, and yeah, just my day in
Okay,
general.
you've got a good point there. You just said it just depends of the sort. Well, I'll say it in English. It just depends which solo queue, you know, like you're playing at that time.
No.
I had a question about that, which is, I want to know if this is true or not. People always say, okay, you know, it's like if Froggen plays solo queue, Froggen's going to play mid lane, and he's going to play mid lane champions. You see where I'm going with this? And if Edward plays solo queue, I imagine he'll probably be support, you know, like picking Thresh and stuff. If sOAZ plays solo queue, that could be like jungle Teemo. Like, that's not even a joke when I say it. Like, people have the perception that sOAZ doesn't even... It's like, because he hates top lane, he doesn't even go top lane in solo queue. It's like, nah, I hate top lane. Can I go jungler or something? Like, what do you actually play much top lane? Do you spam champions that you're going to play? Either Zoro Zero?
Okay, in solo queue I usually prefer to play jungle because I can do whatever the fuck I want. But
I can already see Monte just getting ready.
Hey.
Keep going.
I mean, don't you play Yorrick and top lane Ziggs in the LCS? Don't you do whatever the fuck you want there too?
not really because we actually practice it, but fucking fake. What I wanted to say. No, in solo queue I just usually play jungle, or it depends. Like, I just play whatever I want, but it's not like I don't play top at all. I play top probably 1 game out of 2 or 3. It's just I don't play it always. Like, I don't ask for it, right?
No, but I could. That's even better. He doesn't ask for it. It's like, can you imagine like Fake just loaded up the game, and then they're just like, and eventually every now and then they're just like, Fake, can you please go mid? He's like, oh, well, if you insist, like, I wanted to play support and get so. Okay, but doesn't that listen, sOAZ? What's confusing me here is people always tell me that the only purpose in playing solo queue if you're a pro is to like keep your mechanics really good, right?
Yeah.
Well, how the fuck do you keep your mechanics really good playing like Xin Zhao in the jungle and you're a top laner? Is that not a problem?
No, but that's the thing. You just have like solo queue just for your mechanics, right? I'm not gonna learn anything from playing my role in solo queue because people are playing Tryndamere and Teemo, and it's completely retarded, right?
Okay.
So
It's challenger in Europe.
I'm just playing like, if I can, I just play like this in jungle if I can, and other mid laners like. I just play kind of skill champion, and I just keep up with my mechanics like this.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that in while we're talking about like the dedication part. So there's also another perception about sOAZ, which Monte kind of addressed there, which is that, let me think how to describe this. Okay, one of the areas, listen, maybe you practice as much as you can, you do your individual play, you get yourself to a good level, and you play the game, and you practice, and you think, listen, this is all going to go well. And so, listen, in my world, the world of Europe. Like, that's fine. You know, you do your work, you do your job, and then afterwards you go and do whatever you want. And, you know, I mean, in France, apparently it's like, oh, they have like mistresses or something. Like, I don't know. It's a different culture, Monte. I'm just setting the scene like this, okay? But in Monte's world of NA, of America, where it's like professionalism and all this bullshit, like, surrounding everyone, they think, sOAZ, that every week, like, the second you finish the last game on Friday, you're just like into the club, like, and then you're just there for like 18 hours, you know, you're just messing around, and then you just turn up like 8 a.m, you walk in the door of the Fnatic house for team practice, like, yeah, I will probably play a few of the solo queue and then I go to sleep, and then you're just like, that's how they think your weekend goes, you know. You don't have any time, you're not partying.
So
is sOAZ a party animal?
No, I used to go a lot more partying than right now, but well, only 3 days right after LCS. So usually after LCS we just go to a bar or whatever, but we don't really party that much compared to before. Like the last split and the other split, we are going like 1 or 2 days out, let's say, and right now we just have 1 free day, and we just practice all the other days, like all day. So we don't have that much free time, and we don't do whatever the fuck we want either.
So when sOAZ made Cyanide made that comment in that interview suggesting that people were hungover, was he only talking about himself? Was he just being an idiot? What was he doing? Come on, tell us.
Actually, yes. So
he's just talking about himself.
Like, so we went out, right? But we are like, all the people like actually played fine, and the scrims were not too bad. But Cyanide actually really felt bad about like going out the day before, so yeah, it was more about himself than others.
Okay. So were you mad at him when you saw him make that comment? Because everyone then thought everyone thought like the whole Fnatic team was out in that same club that I was describing before, you know.
Well, I just thought it was a bit stupid, but I make a lot of stupid Twitter posts as well, right? So.
Okay. So speaking of which, we get into that. So then Monte, you know, thought to himself, well, I'll reach out to sOAZ privately here. He's a good friend of mine. Just check what happened with the situation. Just check that the ground's all level. I've got my footing firmly here. But I don't want to leap in with any incendiary comments here. And so what he did was, the way he privately reached out to sOAZ is he opened that box. It looks a bit like the private message box, but sometimes it can actually be the public tweet box. And he was sort of like, you fucking alcoholic French man, why will you not play? Like, you know, what happened, Monte? You essentially told him something like, you know, how can you be dedicated if people are drinking so much and stuff? Did you actually have this perception of Europe, Monte, that people, they party a bit too hard or they're not dedicated to the game? Was it just the Fnatic team from the interview? What do you think?
I mean, I do have that perception about some of the European teams at times, but I just have knowing them. But in that case, in my defense, I had all the information I needed. I had an interview saying somebody was hungover, and then I had somebody saying they were the most dedicated team in Europe, which actually, you know, come to think of it, that is a relative distinction. So maybe all the other European teams are actually more hungover. Okay. I had not considered this, actually.
So it's sort of like he's like the most straight-laced.
But you know what I mean. You know.
You still there, Monte?
Well, it's
but yeah, I mean, getting into this now. Yeah, I mean, but getting into it now, I think we have seen that change since All Stars. And frankly, you know, the thing about All Stars is it's between the splits. Like the teams, if you want to take a break, like that's the time to do it. And the other thing, it's just what set me off is not, like I said, Fnatic's performance. It was the whole attitude surrounding it and the discrepancy that I saw between what different people on the team were saying. But now, you know, we move into the next split and Fnatic's getting their shit together. And like you guys have a coach now, and your performance is definitely dramatically increasing. So yeah, I think that's also hard on the teams. I think All Stars is particularly hard on the team because, you know, a team like works really hard, wins the split, and then they don't get any break. They have to go to All Stars, and then they have to come in and like fight for their spot at Worlds the next split. Like it's tough. It's definitely tough.
That's why we didn't like fully like play all day all night either. We just practice, let's say, half of our time for All Stars compared to what we did at Worlds as well.
So now you're gearing up. I want to talk about what you're doing now.
Yeah, okay.
Because now you're gearing up. So what happened with Aranea? Like, why are you picking him up as a coach? What do you like about him? How does he fit in with the team?
He just behind me, so I cannot say anything bad about him right now. But Arne, he helped us even before like being officially your coach with the playoff.
The last
So
split,
yeah, so just for playoffs, again, or best of 5 against SK. Mostly, I think. I don't remember if he helped us before this match. So yeah, he just helped us through picks and bans. He just analyzed the teams. Now that he's in our house, he helped us a lot more with communication and all this stuff, which he couldn't do that much from home since he was studying most of the time as well. Right now he's like fully with us and he can help us with lots of stuff.
So, let me think. So actually, in general, though, this perception that Monte brought up, where he gets the sense that, okay, maybe in Europe it's a bit more lax, like people aren't, they don't, okay, to set the scene, for a number of the top Western teams, as in the North Americans, they literally have like the set hours of day that they practice and do all this stuff. And in general, there's not that much free time in that period then. If it is free time, you probably use that for extra streaming or like something else work related, and there's some time off, but it's not as strict as Korea, but it's somewhere closer to it, okay. Whereas in general, they have a perception that in Europe, people practice some, and no one really knows how much each team practices, and then it kind of goes on the practice, like the results in the tournament, and they get the sense that overall it's not as strict. Well, this is the reason why you're a good guest to have on, sOAZ, because you kind of like epitomize what I get the sense is like the sort of player that Monte doesn't really like. And what I mean by that, before that sounds like too inflammatory a comment, I mean as in, if I think of sOAZ, like I have experience of like European people, okay, so I think of someone like Stefano in StarCraft 2. And okay, he was a brilliant player, had like a lot of flair, and the key thing was he had like unique strengths that no one else had. So for example, in StarCraft 2, he was amazing at like decision making in a way that other Western players actually weren't.
Very innovative and creative in his like strategy.
But the thing with him was, actually, he's someone where, believe it or not, he would be worse in tournaments if you made him practice as much as a Korean. That would burn him out, and he wouldn't even be able to play, okay. So, okay, he probably went a bit too much the other way and sometimes didn't practice enough, but he had, like, enough unique skills that he could sort of...
He's super fun to party with.
Sure. He had enough skills, though, that he could, like, he could apply his unique strengths enough to still be successful. So when I think of sOAZ, I think of the same thing, okay. Even in game, you know, he's playing all these weird champions, but he's made it work for him. Like, people don't know what matchup they're going to play against him. And as a player, okay, yeah, the splits, Fnatic has periods where they do badly, but they always come around, they always win the split at the end. So I'm thinking of this as like, if this was a movie, okay, what a romantic sort of Byronic hero sOAZ represents here, sort of this cavalier attitude, this flair, this individualism. I'm thinking, what a triumph of the human spirit. But I think Monte looks at this and he says, like, this machine must have precise parts within it so that I know what is going to happen when I steer this machine. You must listen, sOAZ, you are not a man. You are a number. You will fit within my machine. You are a cog. Like, what is the philosophical difference here, Monte?
No, I don't feel that way at all. Actually, I really enjoy a lot of the more freewheeling players. I mean, perhaps sOAZ would be a little too freewheeling for me, but certainly it's not. You know, when we have a like when we talk about strategy and stuff on CLG, obviously the players bring a lot to the table too, and you know there's a degree of freedom here. But if sOAZ tells me he's going to pick Yorrick when like Shyvana and Mundo are on the table, like. It's gone too far. It's gone too far.
But let's talk about the last game I picked. Like, okay. If you analyze it, I was the only melee, and you cannot pick Shyvana, which have to dive in against Lulu, Orianna, and Kog'Maw, since you're gonna die in like 1 second most likely. So I could have go Mundo actually, but I didn't even think about it, right? So. I just went for the Yorrick, but
so Monte,
I think it was a fine choice.
Don't jump in
Hey,
yet,
you
Monte.
won.
I want this to be structured, okay? So I'll just take you through his statements there. Monte, if you analyse it, he had to pick a melee, right? And Dr. Mundo was up, but he didn't think about it, and he didn't want to pick Shyvana because it would die in a second. So all that was left was Yorrick.
Okay.
Yeah, if you analyse it, Monte, all that was left was Yorrick. I mean, there's no holes there you can pick.
That was Renekton.
For
Fnatic, that's true. Yeah. That's like the panic pick.
No, wait a minute, Monte. The champion pool's expanding already. There was Renekton, there was Dr. Mundo. I mean, no one who remembers these meta champions, right? So all that was left, it was Shyvana or it was Yorrick. What? I don't understand, Monte. What's wrong here?
I don't think Shyvana would have been great, and Renekton laning against Lulu is not the best if Lulu plays good. So
how is Yorrick's laning against Lulu?
Yeah, you cannot dominate him, but in this game particularly, Silent was most likely both side of the map and mid. But a lot of time Lulu was really low at turret, so if it would be another game and Silent will come top, we could have dived Lulu many times. So it just how the game went really.
Is Yorrick really that bad, Monte? Like, is there not certain circumstances? Like, is he not describing a circumstance where it would be acceptable?
I think Yorrick is only acceptable with like Jax or Vayne on the team, and I just have in the late game he gets kited out really easily. Like he never touches an enemy team if you play against him right. I mean, I have big problems with him, but you know, Europe does their own thing. Europe always has. They're gonna play a ton of Aatrox top randomly. Like, what's with that? All the top laners in Europe just like wake up one day and decide to play Aatrox top again. Like, where did that come from?
It's most likely, I think most of the people were trying to find a pick against Irelia, since a lot of Europeans were playing Irelia compared to NA. And Aatrox in lane swap is really good against Irelia. Like, as soon as you face him after lane swap, you're strong and you can beat him one-on-one, so... And he's really good in lane swap, most likely. Diving, like... ganking middle, 2 versus 2 jungle. It is good pick.
So we're making fun of sOAZ for these picks here because obviously like there's more meta picks that everyone else would think you're supposed to play this. Weren't you one of the people, Monte, a while back who kept sort of citing, in the vein of him using Yorrick, you kept saying like, sOAZ, why do you keep playing Lulu top, right?
Okay, but this, yes, yep, and people have confused this statement. So... this was, you have to remember that there was a meta shift in how top lane was played. And before, I do think that Lulu was not a good top laner in the 4v0 push meta. In the jungle follow meta, I think Lulu is excellent because Lulu has that flexibility. And to explain why, here's what changed. So 4v0, Lulu just gets denied. You kind of push her in, blah, blah, blah. There's no reason in that situation to pick Lulu. Now, what makes Lulu good now is that when you have a lane swap, okay, what the AD carry will frequently freeze solo in a lane. And so if they have their AD carry and a support in a lane, or if they just have their top laner and support in a lane, Lulu functions as another AD carry in the way that in the early game, her passive allows her to trade with auto attacks extremely well. And you can have Lulu and a support in a lane together against their top laner and a support, or their AD carry and a support, and it will function the same way, and Lulu will be able to CS and get big like really well. So this didn't exist when I said Lulu was not good, right? Okay. It's the circumstances in the metagame changed, and now Lulu is excellent.
So why did you used to like Lulu at the time, sOAZ? What was good to you?
But before and right now, like at any point in the game, you could always force the 1v1 or 2 versus 2. So it most likely depends of your team. Like if you really want to follow the 1 versus 1, you could always do it. And Lulu was probably the best hero. Like no one didn't know to play against her, right? The only hero which was good against Lulu in the old meta was Trundle, because he could just ultimate and like just heal everything that you deal to him. So I think before she was good. Now she's a lot better, but before she was still viable.
So one of the questions I have that immediately leads me to this, maybe you'll see where my confusion comes from here. It sounds like when something's not in the meta, then sOAZ finds a reason to play it. He's like, this will be interesting to play. Like, I think I can figure out a reason why, like, forget about those 2 meta champions. This is like the pick that I should do. But then suddenly when it comes into the meta, then sOAZ is like, yeah, I'm not into that champion very much now. What's not in the meta? Like Lulu's top now, where everyone's playing Lulu top. Like, yeah, I don't really like that actually. Yorrick
I'm going to play Ziggs top.
Yeah, like, is there a degree to which you don't like to play meta champions? You want to always find something new or something different?
Not really. I just wanna win games first, but.
Whoa!
Like,
that's an interesting place to start with. That's where you're thinking. Like, I just want to win the game. Okay, yeah.
No, but I don't know. I just like to find new picks, and I just try them. If it works, I can just bring them into LCS. If it doesn't work, I don't really try hard. Like, even though at the time it didn't really work with Lulu, I just know that this year was good, so I just kept playing it. So
I have a really crazy. I'm gonna kind of like. If you lived in America in like 1982 or something, and the Cold War was still like really at its height almost, and so the difference between living in the middle of America, if I took that person from like Kansas or something, and I took them all the way over to Russia, and I'm going to take them to like St. Petersburg in like the full like communism, the Iron Wall is up, and I take them and I show them what life is like there, then they're going to be like, my God, this is incredible, like, I didn't know the world was like this. This is a totally different world. Like, how could they live like this? I'm going to kind of do that for you here, sOAZ. So at the moment, you live in the freest country in the world for an individual player in League of Legends. You live in Europe. You're making your own picks. You try and shout on solo queue. You're playing Lee Sin on solo queue, and then you're like, is the game soon? All right, I'll go Yorrick. And then everyone else is like, okay, sOAZ, that's what you say. You're the boss. You're the boss of top lane. So you pick Yorrick. You go into the game, and you're like, I think we have a pretty good team comp here. The champions we all individually decided we wanted to play sort of work. Let's win this game. Go team! Like that's kind of like sOAZ getting into a game. Now, believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy, but just like follow me along. Pretend it's like a sci-fi movie. Like imagine if this was the case. Okay, in other parts of the world, they have a dude called a coach, right? And he decides before the week starts, like what kind of things this person should be practicing. Like, try these champions out. Then when it comes to the game, he has a set team comp in mind that you want to go for. And then this is even fucking crazier. He'll even tell people like to specifically pick certain champions. Are you this part's crazy,
your mic
I know.
is lagging now.
I am? Am I still lagging now? Test, hello?
No, you're fine.
No,
Okay.
it's fine now.
So he will even tell people like what champions to play, and here's the crazy part: what champions not to play. Like I've heard stories from Korea where someone was really comfortable on one champion, and his coach told him like, "No, you can't play that champion. Like that's not going to work." Now, first reactions to this sOAZ, like how could they live like this? This is like animals. You're not. They're closing the human spirit off here, right? You should be able to pick what you want, right?
Well, Arne don't really tell us to play like specific heroes or team comps. We pretty much like just talk between us about what we wanna play and what we wanna play most likely for the next week of LCS. So it just depends on us really. Alvar is most likely helping us and asking question if like another pick will be better than this one, but it's most likely about us.
Have I kind of outlined it right there, Monte? When you hear sOAZ describe it like that, is there a part of you thinking like, well, who's telling sOAZ not to pick Yorrick, or who's telling, who's actually having some input in this? It sounds like he's having all the input himself.
Yeah,
right?
but it doesn't matter because as a coach in League of Legends, unfortunately, I think the greatest for coaches, the best ever change to the game would be that coaches could be involved in champ select. That would be the greatest thing ever. That would be, oh my God, yes, please, Riot. And that happens in Masters in Korea. One of the leagues, the coaches are allowed to be in the booths during champ select, which is good because, first off, you can tell your players a lot of things, but as a coach, you have zero power as to whether they will do these things or not because of the way that esports works. Like you can't call timeout and be like, okay, team, we're changing the strategy, or you can't be there in champ select. And I mean, one of the main problems with CLG over the last couple of weeks and where some of our losses have come from is that the fact that the team has specifically been picking team compositions that we have not practiced. which is infuriating to me as a coach. Right, and then they just.
As well.
I know what happens. What happens in Champ Select? Please, can you enlighten me? What is the mindset of a pro player where you're like, oh, I guess we should just pick this thing we haven't practiced, and then we're gonna lose? Like, what? Why? Why does that happen?
I don't know, just like some random moments that happens once every 10
Is it
games
that
or
timer?
something.
Is the pressure of the timer ticking down? Tick, tick, tick.
No,
Oh my god, all these
they just
champions, I have to pick the one that I want. It's so hard.
usually if it's like if you plan something against what they are gonna do and they completely do the opposite or something else, then you try to rethink about your plan and you're like just completely changing what you are supposed to do.
I mean, the best ever example of that scenario you're describing, Monte, is Game 3 of TSM versus CLG, where after Champ Select, Niantonso was just sort of like, woo! And then, like, his head in his hands, and it's like, dude, that was just the part where you pick the character you're going to play in the game. Like, you know the game hasn't actually started yet, like, you could still win. And he was like, oh, what am I going to do after this? Go back to school? Fucking hell, this is pretty rough right here. Like, what do you think? Do you have a theory on this, Monte? How, like, why is Champ Select such a weird zone? Why is it like the Twilight Zone, the Bermuda Triangle of, like, crazy shit just goes down? Why don't people just have 5 picks in mind and they go, well, I've got a flowchart in my mind here. I can't pick that one, that's banned. He picked that one. You know, like, if I'm playing blackjack, okay, Monte, you can literally get a little printout that tells you in every scenario, right? Like, if the dealer's got this hand, you bet, you stay here. Like, there's literally, it's a flowchart. Why is there not one of these for League of Legends?
I mean, sometimes there is, but like I think what the biggest problem in Champ Select is that when the players like see an unexpected ban or an unexpected pick, then they start like psyching themselves out, and they're like, "Oh, we have to counter this now," which is actually, I think, the exact worst mindset to go into the game, and that's what I respect about sOAZ is, you know, he sticks with it. He's like, "Fuck this! No, I'm gonna pick this no matter what." And like, but that comes, you know, when you have a game plan like that, I think it's a stronger choice to have a game plan going in and have something you've practiced than it is to get like the counter pick, because the counter pick is not actually as big in the pro scene because you can always swap lanes now as it used to be. And I think that's like hearkening back to an earlier day of League of Legends. Sure, lane matchups are still important, but you can get by with like losing lane now and still win the game.
But I don't think any.
Did you just hear that,
any
sOAZ?
top. What?
You can get by without winning lane.
No, but I don't think any like top teams in EU, NA, or Korea just thinks about like counter pick or anything. I don't think.
Oh no, they
anyone
do.
thinks
But
about
I do
counter
think
pick anymore.
that like throws off some game plans sometimes. I'm not saying all the time. I'm saying sometimes people like panic during
maybe
Champ
for
Select.
some people, but at least for me, I never.
Fnatic is just cool as a cucumber during Champ Select. They're like, we're coming in with this shit. We're gonna play top zigs. That's it. Game over.
Yeah, we actually wanted to pick it, so.
I don't think top
six
zigs is bad. To be fair, I think it's cool. I don't. My issue with the top zigs pick is not that I think it's bad in top lane. I just think it's better in mid lane because because of the range on his ult, you can clear both side lanes. But it's not bad top. It's just like
the thing is, it's most likely it's like the kind of strategy you use once in a while. You know, like we just play zigs. So let's say they wanna go TF, and then we just pick an assassin mid like Fizz or something, and just counter mid lane, right? So
right.
It's just like it's just the same as we play Blitzcrank like 2 times in LCS. You just played it 1 or twice in the LCS, and then you stop playing it, and then you play it again when they forget about it.
I mean, Monte, isn't there a perfect example for you to talk about the difference between like counter picking your lane and picking your comp? In as much as you described there that sometimes the reason why something wacky happens is someone sees a pick that's unexpected and they think to themselves, you know, it changes how they're thinking. Instead of thinking like of which of the 3 champions they're going to pick, they think to themselves like, oh, well, what would be the counter to that? Like, how could I pick something that would like give me an advantage over that? If that's the case, then everyone who plays against sOAZ would be mind-fucked, right? They'd be constantly thinking like, oh, what do I do against Yorrick? Like, I don't even play that matchup. But instead, I'm guessing most people don't. They just pick whatever their normal comp was going to be, and they go normally towards their team strategy, right? So isn't this an example of what you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. And I think the other thing that I like how just occasionally, like a naked xPeke just like walks in the background. But I
To
think
be fair, that's like the
other
second
thing
time
that
he's
can
performed on camera this split.
I think that's hilarious. Anyway, I think that the other thing that happens in Champ Select is that if like an OP champion gets through, even if you haven't practiced it, you're like, oh, we have to take this away from the other team, and then like the team in Champ Select will be like, oh, there goes our plan. Like they didn't ban this one champion. We're going to take the OP now, but we haven't practiced the OP, and in fact, maybe we've beaten the OP.
Did you lag out or something, Monte? I think Monte's disappeared. Can you still hear me,
Have I
Sarge?
just disappeared?
Yeah, I still hear you.
Okay. You know, we can hear you now, Monte. Just keep going.
Okay.
You just said the bit about the OP and how they had to try and pick something like a counter or something.
Well, no, it's just not the OP. Like what I'm saying is that when an OP, like a team doesn't ban like an OP champion that you expect them to ban, and then all of a sudden maybe they don't first pick it either, so you like have a chance to get it. Like teams will just tunnel on that pick, even if they haven't practiced that pick, right? And so and even if they've beaten that pick before, they'll still just like tunnel on it and grab it, and then like that ruins like a week of practice right there. When you can just beat it with other champions or just go by your own game plan. That's been a big issue for me.
Let me think how to describe this. Now I've got like Skype boxes for everyone. Can everyone still hear me? Are we getting DDoSed or something? Is it only me who's lagging now? Yeah, it says there's a problem with the call. Hello? I think the call just came back on now.
Do you hear me?
Cool. Yeah, we can hear you.
Turn your cams on. Weird. Right, sure. Okay, we should be back now. Right, let me think where to go with this. Okay, so in general though, you say in general though, so as you say, you don't have a problem with playing meta champions, right? Like even if it's one you don't enjoy, if it really was the best pick for that scenario, sOAZ would play Renekton, right?
But I mean, like, I got kinda known for playing a lot of Shyvana as well. It's not like I don't play the meta champion. I just play what I think is good. That's all.
So Monte, if I made you the coach of Fnatic tomorrow, careful, this is only a hypothetical. It's not really going to happen. I'm not going to really force that upon you, Monte. But if I just made you hypothetically the coach of Fnatic, and so your job was to find a way to make the strengths of Fnatic work, but without like you don't want to like take someone who has like an individualistic flair and like make it too structured so that it ruins the game for them and they can't perform. Okay. Is there a philosophy here that would allow sOAZ to still use his strength of all the different matchups he knows and being able to get little edges on that someone else maybe couldn't get out of champion while also playing within the meta? Like, does someone have to play within the meta for you? Do you think to be a world-class team?
No. I don't think so. And I think that in fact it can give you an advantage because sOAZ knows so many matchups that other people don't know, right? So he can confuse his opponents. And I think that's what's great about him just as a player. Is that he is, I mean, I think what I think is extraordinary about you as a player is the number of champions. Your champion pool is absolutely massive. And why would you take that advantage away? It's just a matter of like, I don't know how you guys operate on Fnatic, but I think that really like sitting down and like hashing out all your champion picks and then trying to find compositions against meta picks or be very structured in the way that you do the pick and ban phase so that you have this champion going in. And like you said, you've been practicing top lane Ziggs or whatever. Like that's great. That's how you should like approach it. So I can't really say without knowing more how your team works and how you prepare for games. But like Well, I think what I would do, which would be fun, is to put like to make the sOAZ spreadsheet, right? The spreadsheet of this is sOAZ's giant champion pool, and this is like a good counter pick, and this is a team comp that we can run against like this top lane counter pick. And I think that that's how I would structure Fnatic is like the sOAZ pick defines the team comp, and that would be a really cool way to play.
Well, my champion pool is big, but I don't play like all the champion at the same time, right? For example, Yorrick, even though we played it, I didn't play him in like 4 or 5 months, but he's just the kind of champion that even though you didn't play him, you still know you still kind of know how to play him, right? Because he's not really complicated compared to if you don't play Lee Sin for a week or two, then you cannot play him anymore, right? So it just depends of the heroes, really.
If we
Oh, yeah,
describe this
absolutely. I mean, there
scenario,
are champions like York, like oh,
keep
sorry.
going.
I was gonna say there are
Is it
champions
lagging?
like Yorrick and Nunu that you can just always play because they're so mechanically easy, um, and therefore you can always go back to them. Unlike Lee Sin.
Yeah.
When you hear this, some of this stuff sOAZ has told us, like about how the team works. Like we're even hearing like Champ Select here, how the team practices, what they do in general. As a coach, it can't be good for you, right, Monte? This approach.
What do you mean? What do you specifically?
Well, I mean, if we hear this approach, this is like NA, but like 1 year ago, right?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I don't really know what it. Like I said, without more knowledge about what goes into the team, I can't really say.
Okay, so
for
give us an
certain.
example of a question that would help us get to information that would tell us if it's similar to NA, if it's like got something different. What can you think of that you'd want to know?
Okay, so just in terms of practice structure, so at the beginning of a week of the week, how do you like decide what you're going to be doing for that week, or what your practice is going to look like, what champions you're going to use?
For team practice, we are trying to be more structured now. Like, let's say the 1 or 2 first day, we most likely try picks or setups that we wanna play together. Like, we just talk about what we wanna play, what did we practice in solo queue, what do we wanna bring into LCS for this week or other weeks, and we just try to practice that. And usually we are trying to have more and more objective. Let's say this game we want to focus on drakes. This game, like today, we want to focus on lane swap or other kind of stuff like this. We
And
just
so
talked
this is
about it
new.
before.
This is new for you, like this kind of structure. Would you say that you did this in the
Yeah,
past?
before we just like when YOLOing, playing scrims. So
I mean, but Fnatic is famous for YOLOing during scrims, right? Like you're the team that's famous for like losing
yeah,
every scrim and then winning
but
every
it's
season.
funny because most of the people say that we are like even us like before Worlds we used to play really bad in scrims. Like we used to play really different, but since last splits maybe we play a lot better in scrims and have pretty good records. So I think we play a lot better in scrims, but it doesn't really matter for how you play in LCS. I think.
So I have a question for you, sOAZ. If you are winning,
That you win scrims or not. It just depends how you prepare.
if you're winning
Yeah.
the LCS and then you lose all the scrims, okay, it doesn't matter to you because you win in the games, okay, who cares?
Yeah.
But if you're playing in the, say you get into a scenario like that 0-7 losing streak and
Yeah.
you don't have a very set scrim approach, like not specific things you're practicing. How do you get out of the losing streak then? If practice isn't the answer, like how do you turn it around then?
Well, when we were 0-7, um, we had like maybe 60-40 in scrims, like winning 60% of our games or something like this. But the problem is, as soon as we are playing an LCS game, I think uh, everyone was thinking about is like we just do well early game, and then at some point we were like, oh, when are we gonna throw this game, right? So it was just the mindset of everyone in the team were not that great.
Is everyone still here?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a
So So
delay.
Monte, you just asked him some questions there, and it sounded to me like you were thinking before, well, maybe I just didn't, maybe we don't know the parameters, maybe it does match up. It sounds to me like it doesn't match up at all with what you're thinking in your team, right?
Well, no. I think it does. I think that it sounds like they're actually structuring their practice and focusing on things on a daily basis and making specific goals and then trying to, work on individualized aspects of their play on day to day. So, I mean, it does sound, and as you were saying, like you used to just kind of YOLO it, and now you're trying to bring in this other element. But for you, I mean, why would you? I'm just curious because what was working for you up until very recently was just like a lack of structure. And maybe, some teams have different needs. Maybe it's hard for you or certain players on Fnatic to work within these confines. And having won 3 splits and done very well at Worlds, do you think you need this structure? Do you think that this structure will be successful for Fnatic? Or do you think like it's kind of like boxing you in a way that your more free practice time was actually yielding good results? Or like, do you think that it was just because your team was so talented, like you had all this raw skill that you were able to do it, but now the structure is going to make you even better?
Before, I don't know, before we are like 5 bunch of friends, and as I said, we were kind of YOLOing in scrims, and we are not as serious as we are right now. So it was like a lot more fun and stuff like this, and I felt like it can, in a way, it kind of made us play a lot better at the time. Like having like no pressure and stuff like this. But right now, most of the people, like if you do bad or something, it's like, hey, they don't have an analyst or they don't have something like this. About like Alva, about RNA, I think we just need to have the right person. Like you can have any analyst, even if he's good or not. You need to fit the team, kinda, right? So it just depends
Absolutely.
of the team and or people fit in the team.
So if Aranea does this analyst role, does he actually do the style that most people think of an analyst, where you watch all the Korean games, etc., and you see suggestions of picks, and maybe he comes to sOAZ and he says, okay, they're playing this at the moment, and then don't play Rise anymore because that's not a good champion pick here. Like, did he actually give you tips like that?
I think you're
Call may be
lagging again.
dropping. Yeah, he is lagging for me as well. Seems like the connection is fine between us.
Can you hear now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay, right. I'll ask the question again then. Did you hear the question?
No.
Okay, so wait, if you have
it's somewhat
Aranea
nice.
now as the analyst, does he watch the Korean scene and come with picks for you, like for you specifically, and tell you like they're playing this, they're not playing this, like here's a scenario in which you'd play? Does he give you background info like that?
Yeah, you watch Korean, you watch more Korean games than any one of us, and he just tell us what they are playing. He don't tell me to play this or play that, but he just tell me what they are playing right now, and I just try to think about it if it's good or not.
How often do you think you go with like the stuff that he gives you from the Korean scene? How much is it like going with your own feeling of things you played in solo queue or things you think are good, and how much is going with like an interesting idea he gives you?
Most of the time, I don't really agree with what he tells me about like the heroes or other stuff. But
Why not?
Sometimes we.
Why not? That sounds like a pretty interesting point. Why do you agree most of the time?
For example, if he just tell me to play Zac or something because I used to play a lot of Zac or other stuff, I just think it's bad and that's it.
Is that really it? Monte, the analyst says like maybe you should play Zac, and he's like, well, he's bad. No.
Yeah, I
like,
just think it's bad. So.
Monte, you keep like you're like being the most fucking politically like expedient motherfucker ever on this show right now. Like, no, I mean sometimes an analyst will say to just pick Zac, and you'll be like, I respectfully disagree. Thank you for allowing me. Like, come on, man, you don't believe this shit. Tell me what's going on. Okay, we will try to resume now. For some weird reason, the fucking Skype boxes are flipped around, but whatever, we'll just go with that. So, Monte was making a point about how if a whole region is picking a champion, you know, maybe that points somewhere, maybe there's a logic to it, maybe other regions should try it out. It's interesting, because that reminds me of earlier on when he was like, Europe just all pick Aatrox. What's the deal with that? Like, why they do, you know, like, interesting meeting of the minds there. Did you have an end to that point, Monte, that I missed?
No, I just think that the player's job is to practice their mechanics in solo queue and to practice playing the game in scrims, and the analyst's job is to watch film, or the coach's job is to watch film and help develop strategies, and like let the analyst do his job. Maybe listen to him. I don't know.
About me though, it's like if there is an OP pick or something that everyone plays, so of course I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna like keep playing it if I think it's good. And if I think it's good and I cannot really play it, I'm gonna try to pick something against it or something that is like equally like as good as him for me, and just try to play around it. But yeah. I listen to Alvar when I think he's right, but he don't really know much about top lane, so cannot really trust him.
I see. You can't trust your analyst. Interesting. Interesting. So you hire the guy you can't trust. I got it.
No, but I think top lane is the most like complicated lane.
Certainly right now.
Somehow,
yeah.
So I don't know. You need to know a lot of stuff, and even for myself.
Wait there a sec. See if you can rewind a little bit and just continue on. What was the answer you were saying there? Like, basically, Monte made a joke, like, you know, if you don't listen to the analyst, why do you, like, hire the analyst who you don't want to listen to? Like, what was the reply to us?
No, I said that I listen to him, but I just take, like, what I think is good from what he say, and I just leave the bad part, right? So...
but who are you to judge like what is good and what is bad? Because you could be wrong.
He saw us three-time LCS champion, dedicated player,
right.
best top laner from Europe. What don't you understand, Monte? I think we went through this on
I'm sorry. Okay, all right. I apologize. Lord SOAZ, please accept my apologies.
Actually, I take everything that he's tell me, like if he tell me that I have to ward more other kind of stuff, I always like take it. But if it's about like champions, there's always my opinion about the champions, or if I cannot play this because they have this or other stuff. So as I was saying before, I think the top lane is probably the most complicated lane. So I don't think he knows everything about the lane, and even myself, I don't know everything about it. So
I actually think that right now, because of how complicated lane swaps are, that nobody knows everything about lane swaps. Like, it's so weird, and it changes so fast.
Yeah, from the 4-0 to duo jungle, and like a bit of everything happened.
When we talk about these picks and your champion pool and what you do within Fnatic, do any of the other Fnatic people ever actually try and tell you, like, oh, can you like not pick that champion now, or could you do this instead? Do they get any input into what you do?
They never really told me anything, but it's most likely. I think the mood in the team kind of changed when we went to the point where we were 7-0 and we went to 7-8 or 7-7.
Okay.
So everyone was like kind of trying to play the meta style in any position, and we were trying to practice that. But in the end, we won with something that I played Lulu, I think, against Gambit or something. Yeah, I played Lulu against Gambit, so we even won against stuff that was not really in the meta. So
let me ask you this then: in other teams, I get the sense that actually, if they think a pick isn't working out, they could approach that team member and be like, listen, I don't think this is working. Like, could you do this instead? Like, is it everyone in the team never brings this stuff up? Or is it like sOAZ? sOAZ seems like quite a personable guy when he's on this show now, but are you just like so unapproachable? Are you sort of like, if they come up and they say something, you're like, listen, what do you know about top lane? It's the most difficult lane in the game right now. I'm 3-time champion of Europe. What do you know about this? Like, what?
No.
You really can't... There's no advice goes back and forth between members?
No, if someone tell me something, we just have a conversation and I will prove him that he is wrong. No, but no, but I don't know if he thinks that something is good, I will try it and I will tell him what I think about it. If I think it's good, I will keep playing it and I will keep try it. And if I think it's bad, I won't play it or I will try to play something different.
When you describe like what if it's bad, or when you said before your reasoning for why you picked Yorrick, are you someone like will sOAZ pick a champion that will lose lane and do badly but is better for the team comp? Does he do that?
Yeah, my most likely my playstyle is on that. Like, if you watch our games in Fnatic, it's not like compared to let's say Dignitas or other teams. It's not like I get tons of gank or help or I get all the farm. I most likely have the playstyle of a support and a roaming top laner than a carry top laner. So, yeah.
What do you think, Monte? Do you think sOAZ plays support top? Yeah, you think of it when you think of the supportive player. You think sOAZ. You think,
Yeah, definitely.
Gives up the lane just to win for the team. He knows all what the comp's all about. He's like, listen, guys, we have one strategy. Like we're all on board here. That's how you think of the guy, right?
Yeah, it's definitely how I think of sOAZ. Definitely not like a carry top laner.
No, not at all. Like
Maverick, the Maverick top.
I mean, you're that would be sort of an imaginary version, like Paul Le Chevalier. You know, like he wants to just 1v1 everyone. He thinks he can. He thinks he like, sir, you have insulted me. I will counter pick you and I will destroy you in the lane. Like, that's just an imaginary. That's years ago. He's reformed since then. That's back when he used to party.
Before I used to do that, but since 2 seasons or 12th season or something, I play a lot more support top lane and without less farm than other top laner, and yeah, just try to run on. But it always have been my playstyle. Back then when I was playing Lissandra or something, I just push my lane and try to get a gank off middle or try to TP bottom. So I always was trying to roam a lot and play more like support or CC champions. Top
So
lane.
explain this to me, right? You've just described your style there, like roaming. You actually like to go and help the other lanes, and you even accept sometimes I might lose my lane. Let's accept this premise is true. Then you must fucking love the teleport meta. You're like, yeah, like I'll come in and help bottom now to stop this gank. Like, oh, I'm loving this. This is exactly what I want. I love to play teleport top lane, right?
I like before to play TP when it wasn't broken.
Oh, you only like to play TP when the other person doesn't have TP. Is that what you're telling me?
No, because before people were playing TP as well, but it wasn't as broken as right now, because right now it was like you play against someone which is probably like worse than you, right? So you just play against someone and you win a trade. Let's say you win a trade really hard or something, which before would have make you win your lane. And like right now it's not really like this since TP got nerfed.
Okay,
but
before, yeah.
But before it was like you do one really bad trade, and then he just back to the fountain, TP. He just back to the fountain, buy items, pots or whatever, and then TP back to his turret, and he can do that over and over and over and over.
And then you guys think, right, now awesome, he just uses TP, we push him into the turret, and then we dive him, and then we get a kill. And then you get the kill, and you're like, nice, we're up by a kill, and he doesn't have TP, and then let's have a fight now. Like, sorry, isn't that how it follows after that? Like, I'm confused.
Well, it really depends of your lane and all this stuff, but I'm most likely talking when I was playing the meta champions like Shyvana, Renekton and stuff, and most likely it was like Shyvana Renekton, right?
Yeah.
This kind of matchup, and Renekton was kind of dominating this lane, and Shyvana was just like trying there to farm, and if you do a bad trade, you just like recall and TP, and there's like just no kill potential on top lane compared to right now where you can play a lot more champs, and TP got slightly nerfed, so people still play with it. But yeah.
So you're happy? Are you happy with the changes that have been made now to teleport? That it's a little bit hard, like that cooldown timer is a little longer, so you can't use it on turrets as much as you used to. I think that was a good change, personally.
Yeah, I think it was good. I think they should have nerfed just slightly more, like maybe 20 seconds more or something.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think it's good still.
So I don't know. I think we should talk about EULCS now. How about that,
I have
Thorin?
one question before we leave this topic, actually, which is, I'll play devil's advocate for a second, Monte. As far as I can tell from reading interviews, every person who used to be like an elite level top laner hated the teleport meta, and everyone who used to be like an okay top laner and who was now doing better loves the teleport meta. Like, what was your break down the rationale of that?
Well, I think that a lot of the 1v1 top laners like to continue to be gods at 1v1. And I think that for other top laners, it was a chance to rely more on the team's shot calling about when teleport was going to be used in a lane swap and how you were going to get that farm. And so they got to kind of dodge that or show different skills. Like maybe some players are better at this kind of decision making and less good at like very mechanical or like 1v1 based matchups. So I think, of course, some people were going to be happy with that.
Okay.
So before it was a lot more like before I was calling my TP, like let's say a season ago or something, when TP was not broken, I was like I could make plays by TPing bottom and get double kills and stuff like this. But right now it's more like as Monte said, like a team calling to TP there to get a Drake or to just get the farm back top lane because I won bottom or something. So it's most likely about the team, what they want to do in the game, and not really about you top lane. So if there is a bad TP, it's not only the fault of the top laner anymore.
So if we talk about EU LCS, let's start with Fnatic. So in the problem is in the past, sOAZ, the story of Fnatic was always like this. Like, doing really good streaks of winning, doing streaks of not doing so well, and then in the end, always bring it back and win through the playoffs. Now this season, it's been the exact opposite. You haven't been up and down at all. You've actually been the most consistent team in LCS EU. Because every week, you go 50% win rate. Every single week, you win a game, you lose a game, win a game, you lose a game, win a game, you lose a game. And so for most of the split, you've been like 4th place. What was going on in this part of the split? Like, in a way, this is good that you're always getting a win each week, but what was going on from your perspective? Why was it like that rate? Never like a streak of winning or a streak of losing?
I think I've been like this since All Stars. As I said before, like we always had good early game and good game plan, fine/good pick and ban phase, but we really had problems closing game or kind of throwing them. So that's why. So I guess like lower teams it was much easier because they didn't really know to come back. But against really good EU teams, we throw a lot of games. So yeah, we're trying to learn how to close up game better, and we are getting better at that.
And obviously, if we'd have done this show 2 weeks ago, there'd be a lot more critical questions like, what's going on with Fnatic now? Is it can you even rely on that old story of like, will you come back again, or is this like over? What happened in the Super Week to go 4-0 and now, like after all of that bullshit of being 4th all the time, now you're in 2nd place. So everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's all back to normal. Don't worry. Like, what happened?
But before, I don't know, when we were doing 50-50, we still had the potential. Like, let's say everyone was saying like Alliance is and were the best team, but our games against Alliance were kind of close, and there is the kind of epic base race that we ended up losing, and we were like 3k ahead before this or something. So even against the top teams, we are losing, but it's kind of us throwing games than them doing like really good or anything. So we just had to learn how to close up games, as I said.
So was that just for Alliance or all the teams you were playing?
Against SK, most of our games were close, and I'll just say against SK and Alliance, but I don't think it's like us. I don't think it's other playing. It depends on the game. Like if they played like really better than us, I wouldn't mind anything. But most of the time, it's us really doing something bad that cost us the game than them doing something really good.
So if we ignore results, which says at the moment Alliance is the best by far, then for you, Fnatic, is the potential is there that you're still the best team. We haven't seen it yet.
Um, I think we have the potential. I wouldn't call us like. I think Alliance is better than us right now, but we are getting there, and we definitely have the potential to be like stronger than them in the future, like really soon.
Monte, do you buy it that Fnatic can be better than Alliance from what you've seen so far?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think that it should be a pretty close matchup, but I think that Fnatic has a lot of synergy that's developed over the years, and they're incredibly consistent when it comes to like winning in clutch situations when they're trying. Like the thing about Fnatic is there's the Fnatic that is trying, and the Fnatic that is not trying. And I believe that we're back into we've gone around to the Fnatic that's trying again right now, just in time for Worlds, because I'm sure you guys want to make it again. So I mean, I think that. All evidence that we have from this team points to the fact that they're going to be able to do well again.
I hope so.
two things I want to ask about EULCS. So, one is about Super Hot Crew. Like, this is the only team you actually haven't beaten this split.
Yeah.
And up until recently, yeah, they were doing pretty well actually. They were in like 5th or they were in 4th for parts of the split. What do you think has changed in Super Hot Crew so Like, this was the team last split where you knew, like, okay, they're going to be one of the worst teams for sure. But so what's different now? Why are they even in contention?
I don't know. I don't feel like Super Hot Crew is like. I don't really know. I don't even watch what is your score against X team, and before you said that, I didn't even know. So I don't really care about that. But I think we have the potential to beat any team in Europe. But what changed in Super Hot Crew? I don't think they changed anything. They are just getting better, like everyone in Europe.
Is everyone in Europe really getting better? Haven't Roccat like jumped off a fucking cliff without a parachute? Yeah, isn't like Gambit going to die soon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about Gambit? Can we talk about? So there was a potential leak of the roster swap, and I think the most baffling one for me is Kuban.
Yep.
Kuban.
What do you think about
Kuban of MYM?
Because I don't see that as a tremendous upgrade for Gambit.
The funny part about like Gambit, it's not funny about the situation, but I mean about Darien is like he always had this playstyle, like he even playing the same playstyle right now, but he just doesn't work in the meta, and he just don't match with Diamond. Like if you play a lane swap game against Gambit, they just have no idea of whatever to do in the game. They just run around the map and die sometimes, and they just don't know how to play the game in lane swap. And since then, since the game is a lot about lane swap, they just got a lot worse. And yeah.
I mean, the confusing thing is, like Monte says, it's not like this person has like. It'd be one thing, okay, actually, if they'd have picked an unknown person, like a solo queue person, maybe they think this guy would fit, he's really skilled. But the reason why it's bizarre that they'd pick Cubon is not when he was in these Polish teams, no one ever said, this guy's amazing, he has to be in a better team. And I have to speculate that I would assume it must be some kind of connection to Nick, the guy who plays the mid lane, because he's Polish as well, he's played in some of those teams, and they all have like a history with each other as to why they've even picked this person up. When you heard this news, okay, that they were going to pick up Cubon, does it surprise you in some sense?
Me or Monte?
You've played against him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played against him, but I don't really know, because as you said, I don't really play top a lot in solo queue, so I don't really know which player is good top lane or not, and which player are free. The only player which I could think which is really good is Zoro, but he kinda stopped playing. I don't know if I think he's playing League again. But about Cubon, I don't really know if he's gonna be an upgrade or not. Like, I don't think he's gonna be an upgrade than Darien. He just depends of the team mood and how they feel. Always when you change a player, it's like usually at first it can be a huge upgrade because everyone is gonna be super motivated to play with those players. or it can be really bad because they don't have any synergy. So it can go both ways.
I mean, what's interesting about that move to me is, I mean, obviously they had to get someone who was available, so your pool of people you can pick from is limited. But even so, that actually suggests that they didn't have a very high opinion of Darien right now if they're going to try a gamble like that. What do you think of this, Monte? Like when sOAZ was describing how the top lane's changed, now the meta's so radically different and all this stuff, did Darien's style even work anymore?
Well, you talk about style, but really I think the fundamental problem in the lane swap is that the team has to understand all the various scenarios that can play out in lane swaps. So probably, because I don't know if Kuban has been playing in the professional scene recently, but do you know sOAZ? Has he been playing in like an amateur team? I have no idea.
I think he was, but I don't know. I was playing a lot against him in solo queue, so I know that he played a lot of solo queue in challenger and stuff.
But solo queue has zero to do with the lane swaps right now, right? And you're not going to learn like. I think the problem is that they need to fix their players' understanding of the lane swap situation, because that would dramatically improve their performance. Whereas if you just get this player who doesn't know lane swaps either, how does that actually solve the issue that you're having?
He was playing in Reason Gaming until recently, who was like basically the old MYM team, but they were playing in the challenger scene.
In lane swap though, it's like pretty much what you have to know. It's like either the jungle, either the top laner is gonna make the calls of what to do in the lane swap, and if one of them can do it, it's fine. Like the other one can just follow it, right?
But they're potentially cutting both positions.
Yeah, that's why, which is gonna be kind of weird, because if both of them don't have any experience, it's gonna end up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how does that actually solve your problem? Like, it doesn't, right? Potentially, it doesn't.
Well, it's Kuban and who is the jungle though? The jungler?
Leluz or something.
I don't know who this guy is.
You know who that guy is, sOAZ? Leluz?
Who? Oh, Lulex, no?
Lulex, yeah. I think
Is it Lulex?
Let me check.
Is it was the sub for them in London.
Yeah, Lulex.
He's a French jungle. He's probably one of the most known like jungle player in solo queue right now.
Okay.
He's really good, and in London, which I don't know if it was his first event, but yeah, he actually played good. Yeah, he actually played decent / good, so I think he can be fine, but he's gonna be the same. I don't think he have much experience in lane swap and really know what to do, but we'll see.
So we all remember Diamondprox, the peak Diamondprox, so you say his best. How far off that was Diamondprox now? I mean, some people think that he had fallen off and he wasn't doing very well for the last split or so. And that, like, where did you see Diamondprox like now? Could he still be playing?
I never thought that Diamond was doing that bad. I think Darien was doing most of the random stuff in lane swap. Like let's say we just analyzed our last game against them. We just take 3 buffs against them because they just do 1 camp instead of rushing 2 buffs, and then they just end up dying because they are trying to contest their buff that we are taking. Like Darien just die, and then he teleport bottom when we are doing their buff, and he knows that we are on the right side of the maps, which is like near their turret, right? So we just come there, and after a TP, and we just kill him again, and I don't know, he just do a lot of random stuff that he end up dying in and giving so much advantage early on. But I don't think Diamond was playing that bad recently.
When people wondered when they replaced Alex Sich, like, could the team, maybe Alex's motivation was burned out and maybe the person they got could fit in some way? Like, the way it is right now, there's no way Gambit is going to be in Worlds, right?
Very low chance, yeah.
Even with the lineup they had before, just always, we had the same moment when we were 7-0 and we were 7-7. Like, every teams will think about like changing players or other kind of stuff, right. But it really just depends about the mood in the team. If everyone is motivated, and it's really about like trusting each other, because at this point it's hard to say, but you cannot really like trust you don't really trust your teammates when you're in really bad shape. So you just have to be in good mood and be happy, kinda. But it's really hard.
I get the sense that Monte thinks the bottom half of EU LCS is quite poor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not even relevant, and there's it's like a battle of 3 teams, and then maybe one of the other teams is on the outside, maybe we can snatch that 3rd spot. Otherwise, that's about it in EU, right?
I mean, Gambit, they're 5-13 right now. They've got 10 games left. I suppose they have nothing to lose because they're -3 games onto Rocket, right? So if they even want to make playoffs, you might as well take a gamble, right? And see if this is going to work out for you. But yeah, I think the bottom part of EU, the bottom part of both regions isn't very good, that's just, they're on bottom. They're not going to be able to compete at an international level at all. That's it. I wouldn't say in Europe. I would say the bottom teams in the LCS in general are pretty not good.
Okay. If you go forwards, Alliance has been statistically the best team, obviously, by far in Europe. They have a winning record against everyone except Gambit, and even Gambit they just 1-1 against. If we look at Alliance now, Monte, are they clearly ahead?
For the moment, yes, I think they're clearly ahead. But I do think that Fnatic is on an upswing, and SK. I don't think SK is going to be any better than they are right now. I think that SK has kind of hit their skill ceiling, and so they'll continue to be a top team. But I just don't see them improving. I think that probably 3rd place is reasonable for them, but I'm very intrigued to see whether Fnatic or Alliance ends up in 1st out of this. And it really is. I think it's good for Fnatic to get serious now because odds are, we've discussed this, that the structure of Worlds in terms of seeding is going to be the 1st place from every major region. So China, Korea, North America, and Europe, all in different groups. So getting 1st place is extremely important because that means that you're not going there. One of those groups too, with 3 Korean teams, one of the groups is not going to have a Korean team in it. And I bet you, because of the way that Riot operates, that it's going to be either the group with the 1st place North American team or the 1st place European team. And so that spot is so valuable, right? Because that it makes your life getting into the bracket stage about 1 billion times easier. And even if you're there with the 3rd place Korean team, that's way better than ending up in 2nd and being in a group with the 1st place Korean team or something like that, right? So I think now is the time to practice really hard, and this is what I impress on the players of CLG as well. Is it's 1st place is it has the potential to be so valuable, and even just in terms of prize money differential, making it out of groups. They haven't announced the prize pool yet, but that's a big step up in terms of money as well. And so it's. I think 1st place, given the new structure, is more important than it ever has been before.
So sOAZ.
Except if Samsung play the same as last time, though.
Sure. So
yeah, exactly, right? So you want to be in that group with the slumping Samsung team, right? That's the group you want to be in.
Yeah.
So in the scenario where he was talking about SK then, maybe hitting their ceiling, with SK, the problem I see for them is the problem that we've described in the past. When we've compared them to C9, Cloud9 in from NA, they had the same problem that Cloud9 had when Cloud9 were at their best, which was that, okay, the team works really well. It's quite consistent. You can see how they're going to win. If they play that way, they do win. You can see when they lose, it makes sense why they lose. You look at the skill levels. It's not like anyone in the team's going to get 1.5 times better. It's not like anyone's playing badly. They're all playing consistently at a similar level. So really, it looks like, okay, they're about as good as they can be. It's not like they can do something to jump up and be number 1 team in Europe. I'm obviously not asking, can they? Because a lot of things can happen. But sOAZ doesn't see SK finishing 1st this split, right?
No. I would say Alliance or us.
Yeah.
And what makes you two? What do you have over SK? Do you think?
Better players.
Yeah.
Sure. No, that's a good point.
It's just I think that Jesus is still pretty raw, and maybe Jesus hasn't hit his skill ceiling. He has improved, and he's young. But I think that SK probably is kicking themselves for Kevin leaving and all this other stuff because Kevin's been performing really well. Yeah, I just think that the average skill across the board in terms of players, in terms of mechanical ability, is like way better on Alliance and Fnatic than it is on SK. SK is a team that outsmarts you, but you can only outsmart yourself out of so many like bad situations that your less than stellar mechanics or not very good champion pools get you into.
Because here's the problem that I see for the SK team. They were doing great last split. Like, I thought, okay, maybe they can do a Cloud9 and maybe they can just beat everyone with, like, just a better team and better tactics and stuff. Then they got to that final and they kind of just got whitewashed by Fnatic. So we already know, like, against the same Fnatic lineup that exists now, these two identical lineups, they did really badly in that final. Well, then going forward into this split, the only team that SK hasn't beaten is Alliance, and they're 0-3 against Alliance. So at the moment, it looks like, no matter how the bracket shakes out, SK has to win the third place game to get into Worlds, probably. Whoever they play in the semis, it's very likely it's either Alliance or Fnatic, in which case the other would be pretty heavily favored, right, Monte?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that SK, for different reasons, is in the same situation as TSM, where they have just not a very good record against the other kind of like top teams. One with Fnatic, but I mean, if you look at they're 1-4 overall against Fnatic and Alliance, and like that's not a place you want to be in going to the playoffs. And TSM's the same way. They're 2-7 against like the top 4 other teams in NA. Like that's very worrisome. Heading into the playoffs, because you have this just incredibly consistent, horrible record against like the other top teams that you need to beat. I think the difference is that SK is more likely to take third and go to Worlds than TSM is. But
here's a problem then for you, sOAZ. If we look at these three teams, Alliance, Fnatic, SK, mostly when we break it down like that, people will probably agree, okay, SK, how they win is like preparation, good team play, understanding of tactical stuff. When people see Fnatic and Alliance play, okay, they have some team play, there's some synergy there, but in general, a lot of it's like brute force, like amazingly skilled players, and when you've got that many skilled players, you only need 1 or 2 to do amazing in the game, and you can win the whole game. The problem is that might work in Europe, because you're playing against, well, essentially Fnatic and Alliance are the only teams that can match each other skill-wise. Then you've got SK have the tactics but can be beaten with skill. And then the rest of the teams, it's like they don't have either strength. Okay, maybe that works in Europe and you can beat these teams, you can bully them, you can win the playoffs. But if you go to Worlds, how do teams like Fnatic and Alliance beat Korean teams who have similar skill but really good tactics and stuff? Is this an area where your team actually changes much?
I think you just have to be in really good shape and prepare really well for your match, because I don't know, you cannot do anything else beside that. If you look at us before, when we were playing Wars with Pusher, I think we were like in top shape, but even though if we would have win like semi, when we scream SKT and stuff, I believe like we would have go 0-3 in best of 5 against SKT. Like, even though we're in top shape, I don't think we will have win any game against SKT because they are just so good at this point. But you cannot really do much. Like, you just have to prepare, and that's it.
After the semi-final of Worlds, I'll bet your team all got together and you were all like, you know what, we did well, but like we should have been in the final. Like, we could have done it. Like, maybe we could have got further. And you know what? Next Worlds, we're going to come back and we're going to be even better. Like, as soon as we get home, guys, we're going to practice. We're going to figure out what we're going to do with our lineup. We're going to get there, and then next Worlds, like, let's promise each other we're all going to be better. We're going to win Worlds. Like, it doesn't look like anything's really changed. Like, like, things have been tweaked, but in general, like, if I look at Fnatic now, I wouldn't bet on you to win Worlds. So, like, what hasn't changed or what could change? Is there even anything? Have you figured anything out?
I don't know. Like, everyone have to be motivated and have to be on the same page. Like, I feel like the teams, like, I can say like team spirit helps a lot in terms of like of play and everything in a team. If you're on the same page, you can do a lot more than if people don't like each other or other stuff like that. So I feel like it have always been one of the strength of our team, that we like playing with each other, and yeah.
Monte, obviously team spirit is nice. If you have a really good team and you're good in the game for reasons which could be outlined on a chalkboard and using graphs and PowerPoint presentations, and then you add in some team spirit, now that's some great stuff. Congratulations, very well done. That's excellent. That's exactly what we want from a team. If your team fucking sucks when we do that chalkboard thing, then it doesn't matter how many times people hold hands, dance around, kiss each other, say like, yeah, I love you, brother. You're going to fucking suck in the game, right? I get the sense that sOAZ looks at the game a bit differently from how Monte does. Like, sOAZ's way of looking at the game is sort of like, you know, he's like, okay, let's say sOAZ is playing versus you in like Smash Brothers Melee. Then if he loses, he's like, come on, man, play again. I wasn't in my shape. Like the controller was like a bit dodgy. Like I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling good. Like I'm starting to play. I'm ready. And then when he beats you the one time, he's like talking shit. Like, yeah, bitch. Yeah, that was the real time. Like, that's it. But whereas Monte would be like, no, well, that game, you see, what happened was like my combos were bad. Like I didn't understand what the other opponent was doing. Like I should have spammed like the wave clear more. Like I wasn't really doing like. What do you think when sOAZ describes it like this? Like, he didn't actually tell me anything about what the team did wrong last time not to win Worlds and what they're going to do differently now. He basically told me, like, we have to get this team spirit better. If we can get that better...
Well, I think the team spirit is incredibly important. I think that you can't be a top team without having, like, you're not, a bad attitude in the team is just, like, one of the worst things, because you can have the best players in the world, but if they are always pissed off at each other and tilting, like, that is not going to work as a team unit. Like, there does have to be that level of trust. I think what's interesting, though, is that coming out of this, too, so as it's like, well, there's no way, like, we're going to beat SK Telecom. Like, what does SK Telecom do that you guys don't do? Because, like, I would say Fnatic is a team with incredible amounts of, like, raw skill. So what do you think it is about, like, you say, like, we need that better team spirit. Is that what SK Telecom has over you guys? Like, what is it that's different?
We don't need a better team spirit, but I think they are just better at the time. Like, we scream them, and we just analyze our game, of course, and try to do better and stuff. But I don't know, it's just like a feeling that we had when we played against them. We just felt like they are a lot better than everyone else that we have played in the past, right? We scream probably all the teams that we are not facing at Worlds. And we just thought that we could beat any one of them, but just not SKT, because they are just a lot better than all the others.
That's a bit depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of depressing when we played them. But it's sad, but it was just the way it was. Like, maybe if we would have practiced against SKT, like, before Worlds or something, we could have probably do better and probably take some games out of them and maybe beat them. But if you don't practice against the real, like, world top teams, you cannot beat them. You cannot beat them at Worlds. Like, there is no way. Or you have to be lucky.
Hypothetical example: if next year, season 5, I get made commissioner of LCS in the Western world, okay, and I put in place, like, Worlds, I'm going to have it at the same time. It's going to be like September, October. But then in like March, I'm going to have like a big international tournament that all the best teams go to. In July, I'm going to have like a smaller one, but again, the best team from each region goes. If you had more tournaments to play the best teams from the different regions at, the chance your chance to win Worlds would go up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that a problem that you see now?
Yeah, I think when you could play a lot more like international tournaments and stuff like this, you could get a lot more experience than you have right now. Right now, you just play LCS and that's it.
Do you buy this, Monte, that the only way to close this gap is to actually play the teams themselves?
No, I think you can do it through research, and I think that through research you can get better, but I do think it's faster to get better by playing international teams. This begs the question, though, because we were talking about this earlier with All-Stars. So as where you said, like, yeah, we didn't practice as hard because we needed a break, but the only way to get better is to play against international teams, and this is one of the rare opportunities. So do you feel that you kind of wasted that opportunity in a way?
I don't feel like we wasted the opportunity at All Stars because even though like we lost, we still learned the same as we would have even if we
Okay,
did
fair enough.
practice a lot more. So I felt like we still gained the same amount as we would have gained even if we would have practiced.
Okay.
So Monte, when we had that episode about China, no matter how skilled the Chinese team was that we were talking about, you always had the criticism of like, oh, they don't seem to understand this aspect of the tactical game, or they have these picks don't make sense here. And it didn't matter how incredible, even if we put them against CLG, for example, right now, and they beat CLG, you'd still say, okay, the CLG approach is the right way, okay? Even if we're not winning, it's like the approach is better, it has more potential. It feels like you're going a bit light here on Europe. Like, surely Alliance and Fnatic have some of these same problems. Incredibly skilled players, sometimes great synergy, great team play, work off each other very well when things are going well. But okay, I always put it like this as an example when I'm explaining Counter-Strike to people. I always say the reason why being the really tactically sound team is very good is because the team that has incredible skill and is hitting all their shots can beat you when they're hitting their shots. But the team that's very tactically sound can win when they're not hitting their shots. You see the key difference there? I can still win even when my players are playing badly because we know exactly how to win and we can find the one way to win that doesn't require some insane outplay. I mean, isn't this a problem that you could see for a Fnatic, for an Alliance if they go to Worlds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think why I'm harsher on China is because the depth, the talent pool in China is like by far probably the best in the world, just because of the sheer number of players playing League of Legends, which is why it's so confusing. Because in theory, right, the best player at every position in the world is in China, in theory. Or at least the most, like, the players with the highest skill ceilings, right? So the fact that they can't, like, get these players and then they do brute force games right now, but you could, even with, like, some tactical development, have this issue or, like, create, like, the best team ever. But I think with Europe, like, because the talent pool isn't quite as deep, like, I'm not as critical.
As China, yeah.
As China, I'm just like not quite as critical of the European teams, but I think that Alliance and Fnatic have shown like substantial growth in their like Alliance has like I feel like they're very like hot or cold in terms of their strategy. Sometimes their strategy is like extremely high level, and then other times they make like really weird and silly mistakes. And I think that consistency still needs to get there. I think that they're still trying to like figure out which situations, like they don't know all the parameters. It's like if they've been presented with a situation that they've seen before, they can execute really, really well. But if you like confuse them, they're not very good at thinking on the fly. So I think as they're exposed to more and more tactical situations, Alliance will continue to improve. Whereas China, I feel like sometimes like the fact that China's still under wards, like we've been saying this for like a year. China, buy some more fucking wards. They still don't do it. Like, why is this happening there?
So when sOAZ, if you've played against OMG when you were at the All Stars, you played against SKT. How do those teams feel when you play against them compared to Alliance?
Well, all the Chinese team play a lot more aggressive than the other teams, even Koreans or LA teams or European. They just play more aggressive and it's much more like random, really, I would say. But I don't know. I think the problem of Alliance is and was kind of the same problem as we had in Fnatic. It was most likely about calls and like game plan and all this kind of stuff. And the good thing about that is you can learn easily like how to make calls and yeah.
So Monte, when you said that, you actually got me back on point there. When I was kind of asking why you weren't as harsh on EU. Okay, if we're comparing China, and we're only talking about China, we don't have sOAZ here, we're going to compare China to Korea, and that's why we're going to be so harsh on China, right?
Right.
But if we're comparing EU, usually we don't compare it to China. What we usually compare EU to is NA, right? Now, if we look at NA and EU, taking aside SK, who have this quite balanced team with good tactics, and they get full marks on all that stuff. The best teams in Europe are mainly just the skill monsters, right? I mean, the teams in NA, in theory, if we're going to do the same thing you did there, I hope this isn't a startling statement, but doesn't EU have a deeper talent pool than NA right now? Think of the top players that have come into NA LCS over the last 2 splits. Where are all the super talents coming from solo queue and the lower amateur teams? It's not really happening. It's the same bunch of players rotated, and then a few Europeans added and a couple of Koreans. Like, the talent pool isn't there in NA. It's the
No, the talent pool sucks in NA.
So doesn't Europe have a deeper talent pool in this sense?
Yes.
I mean, who was Salfi until like a split and a half ago? No one even knew the guy. Now he's doing quite well. You got a whole bunch of players. So shouldn't you be a bit harsher on Europe in this sense? Shouldn't they be much better than NA if they have more talent like that?
I mean, they should be, but I think Europe was also like slower than NA to pick up like serious coaches and analysts too. And I think that really helps out in these tactical situations. And now that, Alvar RNA is with Fnatic, and we have some other, alliances working with an analyst full time. I don't think Leviathan is in the house with them, but I think that will start to change in Europe, and Europe can kind of retake the throne, as it were, in terms of Western League of Legends, and indeed may have already. Just seeing Alliance and Fnatic play over the last couple of weeks, like compared to, I would be much more afraid of these teams now than I was at the beginning of the split, when like everybody looked pretty terrible in Europe. But now I think they're kind of getting their shit together.
What do you think, sOAZ? Why didn't these teams have coaches? Like you even went to tournaments where you lost to big Asian teams, but you didn't have a coach after that. Why not?
Oh, well, and they did have a coach, but they fired him.
No, he was just a man. Okay, I want to get into this actually. Monte always. You've probably seen this, sOAZ. Monte always mentions.
Coach, by the way.
Yeah, Monte always mentions him as like he was part of the coaching staff or something.
He was not a coach. He didn't do anything about like or match or anything. We had the analyst for that, which did a lot of researches and help us.
And did you ever listen to him?
Like that we got. Yeah, we did. We listened to everything.
So why'd you get rid of him?
He told us. We at this time we don't want a full analyst.
Okay. Why?
Just because we didn't thought it would be like useful or anything.
Okay. Is there something's changed since then? What didn't seem useful at the time?
But after months after we tried him, and we just decided to not go with it. And in the same time, Ara was like trying to leave Millenium, and he wanted to be an analyst, so we just went with that. And since we already knew Ara, it was much more easier.
Is there some reason why him being a pro? Like, come on, admit it, are you like a bit of a snob, sOAZ? Like, if someone was a pro, you could believe he knows what he's talking about. But if some guy is an analyst who's just a scrub guy, he probably is not as good, right?
Yeah, kind of, because you don't have the experience of being a pro and how we feel and everything like this.
Okay.
But still, even though we had this analyst at Worlds, everyone of us, even me, listened to what he told us about picks and bans and level ones, what they were doing and every stuff, and he helped us a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I was there. Like, you guys were nice enough to like let me sit in on some of your discussions and stuff like that. It seemed like you guys were really like hashing it out and doing good work.
Yeah. Yeah, we listened to everything he said, and he was really helpful for Worlds. I don't like really remember what happened right after Worlds. Like, I just think we didn't ask him to be an analyst full time, or we just didn't know about it, or I just don't remember what happened right after Worlds. I think everyone went like in vacation and stuff because so
let me get this straight. You guys like get top 4 at Worlds. Everybody's super psyched. Like, that's a great finish for Fnatic. Obviously, you would have liked to get to the finals or win, but top 4 is good. It's really good. I would be happy with a top 4 finish. And then like you have this great success. You have all these really good discussions, like I see that, and then like you just forget. You take a vacation. You're like, man, I forgot how we did this well.
No, but during Worlds, like we played so much League that everyone in the team, like we haven't talked together. It was the really first time that every one of us in your career was really burned out from the game. Like, every one of us were like, fuck this, I don't want to play League anymore. I'm going back home. So we just stopped playing League for like a week or two, and we just came back. But
And then
everyone really don't want to hear anything about League. For 2 months, we basically just wake up and play League for like, I don't know how many hours, but for 2 months we are just playing so much that afterwards we are just like, oh, let's forget a bit about it.
So is there a big enough off-season in League? Because you had Worlds, then you had Battle of the Atlantic, then you had IEM Cologne, then you had Battle of the Atlantic, then you had LCS Spring, then you had IEM World Championship, then you had All-Stars, now you have LCS Split, and now you're going to be Worlds, now you're going to, like, is there a big enough off-season?
The stupid thing about this is more you win, less time you have. That's the only thing.
Because you got to go to All Stars and you got to go to do all these other like stuff too, and you're going to be invited if you're a good team. You're going to get into IEM and stuff like that too. So yeah, and also like if you go to Worlds, then you have to do that's another month, right? And not only another month of Worlds, but like a month of preparation going into Worlds. So yeah, it's pretty brutal. Like obviously in most sports, the more you win, the more you have to play too, because there's like a postseason and stuff like that. But it's not quite the level because there's a longer off season. I mean, it's especially brutal for the Korean teams because they have an additional season, right?
I mean, listen, I'll even put it this way. Like, in sports, like, for example, in sports like tennis, unless you literally are, like, in the prime of your physical peak and you're, like, #1 in the world and you have a chance to win every tournament, in tennis, they take, like, tournaments off where, like, oh, I'm a bit, like, injured now, or I'm not, like, I've been playing badly, so I'll take these next 2 small tournaments off, so I'm, like, ready for the big tournament. That can't happen in League. That doesn't exist. You have to keep playing the whole time. And I can already sense, right, like, I have, like, like Spider-Man has spider sense? I have, like, retard tingles. And when I say something, it tingles when I know what a retard would say in reply. And so I can reply to the retard without him even actually having to speak to me. It's brilliant. I've cut them out completely. I can just telepathically sense what they would say. So they're going to say like this, well, don't complain about that. League of Legends is your job. My dad has to work 8 hours a day. Yeah, here's the thing. 90% of jobs in the Western world involve sitting in an office, and then you do a bit of work, then you go on Facebook for like 10 minutes, and you do a bit more work, you do something else, and then you have a break, and then, like, oh, I don't have to get this done till Tuesday, so I'll just dick around for the rest of the day. Like, that's very different 8 hours work than 8 hours of, like, really hard, like, solid, like, practice, and then playing a game that's really high pressure, then having a discussion afterwards, then waking up at a set time. Then, like, that's totally different level of, like, exertion and mental energy in those 8 hours. So, like, Tabs even said this to me. I want you to address this, sOAZ. He said he actually had a really big problem getting solo queue practice in. Because after he would practice with Lemon Dogs or whatever, like the 10 hours a day, he didn't want to play for another second that day, He was too burned out already. So even though they were #1, he didn't want to play.
But this just depends on the player. But I just think people and the community say that because it's like kind of a dream job for them, right? Sure. Like they'll just like to be at workplace and like I don't know. But for myself, I never like really thought ever about being a pro gamer or anything. It just like happened kinda. I was always like competitive and everything, but that's all. But I don't know. I just think it's a dream job for them, so they just say that we should like be happy with what we have and shouldn't ask for more, and that's it. That's what they think.
What's funny is that's the exact analogy I'd use. They're saying, well, this is a dream job for you. Okay, well then stop trying to make it a fucking nightmare for me. Like, stop saying I have to have no benefits in my life. Like, think of it this way. I once made this analogy on a talk show where someone was bringing up that classic question in StarCraft 2, where they said, like, how can the best foreign StarCraft 2 players get as good as the best Koreans? And I actually said, well, they shouldn't want to. Because the way that best Korean guy is so good is he, like, moved to Seoul from out of his house. He lives in a bunk bed. He has to go to sleep at the same time every night because otherwise you get woken up by your teammate coming and getting into the bunk bed. He has to wake up at a set time, have breakfast that's been cooked for him already that he doesn't get to choose, starts practicing, then he has a break off for lunch, which again he doesn't choose, and then he goes and practices for the rest of the day. Then he goes and plays this tournament. If he loses, people tell him he's shit in his own team. Then he comes home, practices more. Then he has 2 hours of free time each day. Think about that, 2 hours of free time. Except here's the thing. If you're one of the best, the expectation is you will then give up the 2 hours and play extra to prove that you're really dedicated. Then you're thinking, well, you've got the night off now. No, that's bedtime now. 10 o'clock, go to sleep, wake up tomorrow at 6 a.m. And you're thinking, okay, well, that sounds pretty bad. No, that's the best player in the world does that. The best player in the world who wins GSL and hundreds of thousands of dollars, he lives that lifestyle every day. Now, who the fuck watching this show right now dreams of that lifestyle? That sounds like StarCraft prison to me. Like, you're in prison and instead of breaking rocks, you play StarCraft 2. Like, if I'm the best player in StarCraft 2, I want to win the tournament, come home, my beautiful girlfriend sucks my dick, and then I go to sleep in my race car bed, and then I wake up the next morning, my private chef cooks me an omelette, I turn up for a bit of practice, I bang out a few hours here, owning everyone, little bit of theory crafting, you know, I talk to my other girlfriend on the side, who she doesn't know about, but she doesn't need to, I've got her in Monte Carlo, got a nice pimped out little penthouse suite there. I go there for a few weeks. I come back. It's the tournament. I'm all ready. I play the tournament. I come back. Next day, I wake up again. You see, this is the dream. That's the dream. The one I described is a fucking nightmare. Like, sOAZ, if I took you now and took you to like Samsung Blue House, and I was like, hey, Acorn, get out because you look like the devil anyway. Like, let's put. That's a joke, obviously. Like, he doesn't actually look like the devil. That was a contextual whatever. And anyway. So I go, right, sOAZ, hop in his bunk bed, like, you're going to live here and become the best top player in the world. That would fucking suck, right?
I wouldn't fit this lifestyle, but I don't know. I don't really care about what people think. Like, I do care sometimes, but I really shouldn't because it doesn't really concern them, whatever I do. So.
Monte, address this topic because... Okay, we make demands on this show that, you know, people have to be more professional, be more serious, and there's a degree to which you can be more serious, but you can't expect Westerners to do the Korean style, right?
No, and I also don't, I mean, I've said this many times, but I don't believe that is necessarily the optimal way to train either. I think that burns out players. I think that that also... that way of living doesn't give the best team synergy, and I do think that over practicing is a problem because you, like I said, you get burnt out, and you don't have a time to like process the information. You just like fall into very like robotic habits, and I think that practicing that much can be good, but I think that also having team bonding outside of like the game itself or having other activities with the team, as long as you do them together with the team, and I think that synergy with the team and like that kind of trust and positive mentality can make up for some of the loss of practice of mechanical skill. That's my personal belief. And also, I'm just very concerned about the mental well-being of players in general, and I don't think that the Korean training regimen is necessarily the best. I do think it's effective, but is it the best? I would say no, just from a psychological perspective coming from the players.
Okay, no bullshit version here, Monte. You wake up tomorrow and you really are the coach of Fnatic. And you've got to figure out some way to improve things in Fnatic. Like, what things would you change tomorrow? Just off what you've heard today and what you're thinking about your preconceptions of the European scene or what could work. Like for example, is there something in Europe that you think could work that NA does or NA doesn't do and would work better in Europe? Can you think of anything?
I think the biggest thing for me was to make sure that, like, just from what you've talked about Fnatic, and maybe you do this, but I would have very specific VOD review sessions. Like, I think that's one of the most effective things that teams can do is load up a VOD, all sit around together, load up a VOD on a TV, not on an individual computer, so the players aren't like distracting, like Skyping Twitter honeys and, dicking around on their own, but just sit everybody down as a team and go very specific moment through games from other regions, like the Korean games, sit down and like literally do that every day. And if you're having a problem, like that's something that I can do with CLG because since I cast literally every game of League of Legends in Korea, I know exactly which games are good for showing this champion or showing this lane swap or blah, 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 this team composition, right? So I can instantly say, okay, we're having this problem. This game is something that we need to watch to fix this problem, and we need to watch it as a group. And having those like very structured VOD review periods where everybody's talking about the game, everybody's having the input, you're going through it very slowly, I think is incredibly valuable in terms of understanding big picture tactics. And I think that's one of the main reasons why CLG has improved in that regard. And I think that some of the European teams would be greatly benefited by that.
Okay, let me just do a status check. SOAZ, you definitely don't do all that shit, right?
We do if we think that there is. We just like heard about or saw an interesting like Korean game, or most of like the best teams playing against each other in Korea. We just like watch them. So we do it if only if it's like, as Monte said, if we need like to learn, not to learn, to help us doing something about like lane swap or whatever. If we saw something interesting, we just watch the VOD together and talk about it or whatever.
Is there a player within Fnatic who takes the lead on tactical stuff?
Not really. We just talk about it because most likely, like each position have his opinion about whatever you wanna do. But Yellowstar is making most of the like early calls and stuff. See, especially in lane swap, since you don't really stay on your lane as support, roam a lot and calls a lot more stuff. And I do as well if it's lane swap, but if it's 1v1, I usually don't talk too much. But most likely Yellowstar do a lot in terms of shot calling.
So in Fnatic, if SOAZ does badly, it's very rare I ever see people say, oh, he's just playing badly, he's not a good player. They always say stuff like, oh, I didn't like that pick he did, or he complained after the game and made out like it wasn't his fault. Something like that, right? They make it sound like it's something that can be easily fixed. Reckless, people always praise, and even if Fnatic's losing, they say he's playing very stable, he's playing very well. Yet as long as Reckless is doing well, people say Yellowstar's doing well, he's playing well in there. The one position that everyone's been very critical of this season is mid lane. Like, apparently, xPeke has been, like, dead for, like, the first month and a half or something, and there's just this corpse turning up in mid lane every time, and he's getting destroyed. Now the team's winning. Did something happen to xPeke's form this split?
I think the game of always depends a lot about jungle / mid presence in the game, because they just control all the game, basically. If you're gonna get dive top lane, it's most likely because like mid lane didn't have pressure or jungle didn't have pressure somewhere, right? Like if you're gonna get dive by the mid laner, of course, or it just really depends of the game. But I didn't feel like any of us was underperforming, but I felt like at some point we lack coordination between our jungle and mid laner at some point during the split, but I didn't feel like xPeke was underperforming at
Even
least
for
that
his
much.
own level? Come on, man. This is the guy who used to dominate in EU. Like, the only people who could touch xPeke was Alexich and Froggen. And now, suddenly Kerp is fucking putting on blue suede shoes, tap dancing all over his ass. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and
Selfies,
also
body bagging him.
We can talk about mid and jungle synergy, but Cyanide and xPeke have been together forever.
Yeah, but I don't know. I cannot say like what happened between them. But about xPeke, I think like he used to play a lot. He played better when it was like Assassin Beta, when it was like REZ and stuff. And since it has been like this farming champion and a lot of lane swap meta, he was getting caught more than before. And yes, it was most likely farming. Let's say you play Orianna versus Ziggs, you just try to farm all your camp and you don't you don't really have kill potential, and that's where Peke was good at, like getting kills mid lane 1v1 and all this stuff. And this is the kind of stuff he couldn't do for a really long time, and now Assassins are kinda getting back. We see more Fizz. LeBlanc is kinda denied from the competitive scene, but we see Fizz now, and what else? Yasuo or other stuff, but...
Monte, is it a coincidence that... let me think. We've got xPeke, we've got High, we've got Bjergsen. In general, have all taken a dip this split in terms of overall performance level. Is it just what he's saying, like Assassins aren't that good anymore? Is there something more to it? Is there something they haven't figured out? I mean, these are all really aggressive, like, all-in type players, right?
No, I mean, certain players excel in different kinds of metas or champion pools. I mean, you could talk about the resurgence of Dade, too, having very favorable champions for him right now. And also, I think you can, Faker's another player that is, I mean, Faker's still great on anything, but, like, he obviously is, like, shines the most on these very highly mechanical champions. And, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that all these players would be kind of slumping at the time. We'll see if that changes. I don't think Riot is really eager to bring back the Assassin meta for Worlds this year, but a lot of people, even before Worlds last year, were saying this is a great patch. Like, there was a lot of hype on Fnatic coming into Worlds because they were like, oh yeah, so as an xPeke, like, Assassin patch, like, this is going to be Fnatic's, like, they lucked out. And you did, in a way. You did.
Yeah, every player is like picks. I mean, like, they have their ups and downs, and it depends a lot about the game and the meta, so...
Okay, that's all wonderful, and all true, and all those caveats do apply. But Monte, if you look in Korea right now, are there some players who are sort of xPeke type mid laners who are doing well?
Faker.
And how does Faker manage it?
I mean, Faker is Faker. Like, I wish I knew how he got to be like the best player in the world.
Like, do you think all those players have just taken a dip? Is there anyone who's defying the trend aside from Faker?
Well, I think Goong took a major dip, right? And he would definitely fall into that same category. I'm trying to think of another like assassin-style Korean mid laner that has not taken a dip. And I'm not really coming up with anybody.
Pawn, Dade, Goom, Faker, Ambition.
I mean, I think Rookie is doing okay.
Nagne.
Yeah. Rookie's doing okay. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Okay, I'll ask sOAZ first. In the history of Fnatic, whenever Fnatic is at their best, that's when xPeke is at his best. You could almost even go game by game, and it's very rare xPeke has a bad or average game and Fnatic still wins. I mean, is that inaccurate? Isn't that usually the way it is? Like, the team kind of wins and loses by xPeke, right, to some degree?
Yeah, I think it's true. If xPeke have really good game, it's much more easy to win the game, but I think it should be like this with any team, because mid lane is like the center of like the game. If he have an advantage, he can do a lot more than others can do, and that's normal.
Okay, so is it not a concern for you then that at the moment it's like not xPeke's meta? Meanwhile, it's like everyone would say it is Froggen's meta at the moment. Like, that's like the ideal meta if you want to be Froggen Alliance, right?
I think Froggen likes the meta, yeah.
I think that is fantastic for Froggen.
Yeah, Froggen is the best mid laner of Europe for sure right now.
So then we have to. So does the meta have to change before Fnatic can become the best again?
I don't think so. Especially, we just have to get better at. I already say like 2 or 3 times, but close up games, because our early game is always good, or like good 90% of the time, but we end up throwing some advantage.
Let me just stop it there then. So we're going to imagine a scenario in which you're in a game and you're trying to close it out. If a team tells me we're bad at closing out games, that usually tells me that the shot calling is actually not very good. I mean, that's how you close out a game, right?
Yeah.
You assess the situation, you make the correct call, that leads into another situation where you make another good call. You can make one bad call along the way, maybe. You make 2 bad calls, depending on what the opponent gives you. But in general, you're trying to make like the 2 or 3 good decisions in a row that eventually get you the tower, then the inhibitor, then you push the wave in, then you take the whole game. what's the problem in shot calling in Fnatic?
The problem of shot calling in Fnatic, it's like if Boa, Yellowstar have a good day, he's gonna call everything and we're gonna have a perfect game. But if he have a day off where like he talk but he don't talk as much as one day where we will be fine, we have some problems. But
does he have confidence issues? Is this something like if he doesn't feel as good, he doesn't talk as much? What do you mean by that?
No, he just like sometimes I think it's like everyone. Sometimes people have some day off, and it's not like he have always been a shot caller, right? So he because we don't have like one shot caller. I want to make calls in our team, but Bora does the most, and when he don't do like more than others, we have some issues, and it happens sometimes, but we are getting better at it.
Monte, I've made this point a million times, but one of the reasons why I don't like a super democratic method is exactly this problem here, which is that it's all well and good when it goes well and people are just perfectly fitting in, like this guy's finishing off this guy's sentence and he knows where to come in and say this and then he knows to let this guy say now. But again, when you fall back and you're in the bad scenario, who is the person making the call and what is he doing and does he know the hierarchy? And like, isn't this a discouraging sign to hear, Monte, that if Yellowstar's having a bad day at World Championships, they're just not going to have good shot calling?
Well, I mean, I think, but that's the downside to having a major shot caller, right? Is if they have a day where they don't feel particularly talkative or they have an off day, then the team has an off day, right? I think the more democratic method of shot calling is less ideal, but also potentially more reliable. Because we have the same problem in CLG too. Like, if there's a day in scrims where like Afro and Link don't feel like talking, like that day of scrims does not go very well, right? And that's part of what a coach's job is there too, is to sit in, and if there's a problem like that, that's where a coach comes in. Is like, come on, you guys, let's pick it up. You know, we need to this player, you need to talk a lot more. Like, what's the deal? What's going on here? I know I do that a lot. But it sounds to me like what sOAZ is describing is that Yellowstar is, you know, the primary voice on the team, and so the downside is like if Yellowstar is like on tilt, makes it really hard.
Is there anyone outside of, like, okay, let me set it like this, sOAZ. You've got Alliance, Fnatic, SK. Most people think these are the top three teams. Then Millenium has done like okay. They're like an even record. What is the Millennium's chances like realistically to get in the top three for Worlds, you think?
I think it will be really hard for Millennium because, well, they are getting better, but I feel like we are getting there a bit faster than them. And SK, as Monte said, I think he's right, like, they're always gonna be there because they just have been great for, like, the 2 seasons. And Alliance is probably the best team right now.
So which of the 3 teams is Millennium's best chance to beat and get into that top 3, do you think? Who would be the best opponent for them?
Well, I don't think any of the 3. Like, I just think
no, but which
it's
one
gonna
would
be the 3.
They can't all be identical, can they?
Well, then it's I would say probably SK then. I don't think like it's gonna happen, but I think it's probably SK, the weaker team in the top 3.
In the past, when one of the things that actually I thought was almost correct about the NA approach to League of Legends is that every split, when it came up to the World Championships, every NA team would say, like, you know, oh, I think we have a chance. Like, maybe we can go head-to-head with Koreans and Chinese teams, and maybe we could beat them. And listen, obviously they'd say that in interviews anyway, but I actually think that some of them really believed it. Like, I think TSM, some of them really actually thought, like, hey, we could have a chance if we go up against SK Telecom or someone like, or Ozone, maybe we could actually beat them. It sounds to me like Europeans sound a little bit defeated. Like, okay, if we have our best day, maybe we could beat them, maybe we could compete, but like, in general, like, yeah, okay, we acknowledge, like, Koreans are better, like, Asians are better. Like, what is the actual confidence level do you think for a team like Fnatic sOAZ?
Again, against who? Like, or confidence or against Koreans? I think we, like, at the end of LCS, after playoff and stuff, like, if we keep up like this, we will have a good shot against most of the Korean teams, but only if we keep up playing like this. If we have a slump or something, I don't think we will compete against them.
If you play after playing SK Telecom and they didn't just beat you, they like comprehensively beat you at All Stars. If you play a team like that, what is the approach? Do you just play your normal style and hope it works? Do you have to try some crazy shit that you never normally do? What would your approach in general be, do you think?
No, we just play like we play at LCS, but the difference is we just play against a team that we never played before, so you have to do a lot more researches and just try to think a lot more than a normal LCS game. That's all.
Do you actually think that Europeans and North Americans, Monte, actually really believe they can beat Koreans or they can compete?
Well, I don't know what they believe. I know what I believe.
You have a bunch in your team, so could you please give me some insight?
I mean, I don't really broach that conversation very often with my team. Like, I don't ask them, like, do you think we can beat Koreans? Like, that has no relevance on our existence at the current point in time. We're vastly more concerned with fixing the issues with our inconsistency right now and some problems that we're having with, our gameplay. Because I think CLG is kind of in a bit of a slump at the moment. So that's a little troubling. But I mean, personally, I believe that it's a long shot. Do I think it's impossible? No. But I think that if we think about Worlds, sure, Ozone had a bad Worlds last year, blah, 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 blah. And maybe, again, one of the Korean teams will hit a slump like right at Worlds. But I think the odds of all three Korean teams hitting a slump at the same time is very remote, especially because they don't have to deal with any kind of travel really this time. They're going to stay in Asia, which keeps them in the same time zone, and they're going to have a home crowd. Like, I think if you consider the home crowd aspect, I think it's going to be ridiculously difficult to beat a Korean team at Worlds this year.
But about the home crowd thing. I think it really depends of the players, because, for example, when I play at Paris compared to other crowd or anything like Poland or whatever, I just feel like if you lose like a game or something like this in your region, you just feel super disappointed because you disappoint your fans and all this stuff. So. For me, it's the total opposite. Like, if I play in a crowd that I like in Russia or whatever, I just don't care and play my game. But if I play in France, I'm kinda stressed a bit. So I think it just depends on the players.
Something about the ambience just makes you want to give up, right? I had to get one lame ass plan, didn't I? No, anyway, this is the energy from the place comes out. No, anyway.
That was good. So yeah, but in terms of Korea though, I just think that like I think last year for Korean players it was the opposite. I think that part of Ozone's problem was that the players just stopped giving a fuck like at all, and like didn't prepare very well and like didn't have that motivation. And the Korean fans kind of crucified them for it. But I think that coming into Korea, that any team that there's not going to be a team, because they know that it's going to be like 1,000,000 times worse if they like don't perform in Korea. Like the fan reaction is going to be just absolutely horrible, and I think that will motivate them not to just kind of roll over and die. And it's obvious that Ozone was like radically unprepared to come into last Worlds, and I don't see that really happening again.
If I had to ask sOAZ now, who I know you don't watch NA all the time. I'm assuming you watch some of the top teams when they play. Who do you think, if you had to pick your top 3 for Worlds from NA, who do you think is going to get it?
I will pick CLG Dignitas for sure.
Yeah.
And the third one, I don't really know, to be honest.
Why those two for sure then?
Just because I think they are better than the rest. Like,
any reasons why?
Well, CLG have obviously MonteCristo as coach, so.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. I just think they are better than the rest. And as third team, there is like a three-way tie or something in NA right now, no?
Four-way tie for first place.
Four-way tie.
LMQ, TSM, Dig, and CLG, and C9 is a game behind.
Okay, I wouldn't put C9.
So is it TSM or
this is
LMQ?
I think LMQ, if they pull their shit together and if they make better calls, they will be a really strong team.
Someone make a motivational poster there, and it has a picture of LMQ at Worlds, and it says, LMQ, pull your shit together. Fnatic sOAZ. The dream.
No, but like they're the same as us, really. Like, let's say they're the same as us 1 month or 2 months ago. Like, they really have problem closing up games, and as soon as they have a lead, they play kind of randomly, or they want to upgrade their lead and try to close in games. They just need to I don't know, to just do better calls probably. But they're for sure like I will put them as like third.
I love the way you describe that, because it's actually totally accurate. But the vernacular of how you said it, you said like to upgrade your lead. So it's like we're already in the lead. I mean, we could just close the game out and win here.
That's a good. That's a good phrase. I like it.
It's sort of like
upgrade your lead.
sOAZ and LMQ and Fnatic, okay, they're all like in the 80s. They're wheeling and dealing on Wall Street. They're making some money, but they want to make bigger bucks. They want to double down. They want to invest on the big. What's the big deal? They're like Gordon Gekko in Wall Street. Like, greed is good. That's like a Fnatic mantra. Like, if you're ahead, get more ahead, man. Just like, well, no, just why not win the game? Just like, yeah, but more ahead. Like, like gold lead at the end of the game. You don't get to take any of that money home with you. It's not like you don't get like $1 for everything.
Well, personally, my fantasy team where I have sOAZ really appreciates when sOAZ upgrades his lead with additional barons.
And LMQ, obviously, when they go in on everyone.
That's so funny.
So
I want to talk. I want to talk some more about NA, because I think that your perceptions of Cloud9 are probably very interesting, because you have like kind of this rivalry going. You've played against them a bunch, and you've beaten them, I think, slightly more often than they've beaten you. But now they're really having like a lot of trouble. Like previous seasons, 25-3, like the team that doesn't lose in NA. They've won every season of the LCS they've been in. So what is your perception of C9? Why, having played against them, knowing this team, why now have they fallen off? Like, why are they having such problems?
I just felt like it was like before it was really their meta, and I don't know, they are playing really good, but when I watch them play, like I watch most of their games in LCS, and they try to do a lot of random stuff. Like, I saw one of their game, like the Rengar Fizz game.
Well, the Fizz was to counter the TF, right?
Yeah, but why would you play like double assassin without wave clear or stuff like this? He just like 100% risk. There is like no comeback from this. It's like it's full YOLO. I don't know, but I don't feel like the C9 of before would have even tried that. They would have just played standard and beat them.
Because what I've said about C9 is I think what made them powerful was that not only just their intelligence in terms of strategy, but the fact that they stuck to a relatively small number of champions, but they would just play the same comps over and over and over again, and they found really good comps to use, right? Like their comps were good, and they had enough champions that you couldn't quite ban them out, but they would just do permutations of their same power picks over and over and over again. And now I feel like they've kind of lost their way, or they haven't found the C9 comps of this meta. And their picks are like more reactive. Like they would make a choice like playing Fizz into Twisted Fate, which I don't think is a choice that the old C9 would have made. I think they would have just said, fuck it, we're going to play our comp, and we don't care about countering you in lane. But now they're like kind of like reaching for all this stuff that I find very odd. And it's weird to see their kind of pick ban strategy fall apart like that.
Yeah, I think they used to make a lot like I don't know, better decision in terms of everything, like in-game decisions and picks and bans and yeah, everything like that.
Well, if you think about it, that's even what used to allow them to lose as well. Because, okay, in NA, they stuck with their picks, and they know what they were going to even allow to play against, and they would win with it in NA, and then when they played the European teams, if they lost, well, I remember the IEM Cologne, when they lost to Gambit, they were losing to Alexic playing Kha'Zix, because they were willing to let him play that, and they lost to Fnatic because xPeke was on his Kassadin. Like, they were willing to give you even your picks if it was like we know what we were going to play against it. So it's like, we have our strategy, you have your win conditions, let's see who wins the game. Whereas now it's more like almost what you were describing about the top lane thing before, trying to counterpick the guy and trying to do something where it's like, okay, I'm not that great on this champion, but I hope that like the matchup imbalance gives me the advantage here. Do you think there's any player that you can think of from when you played them, sOAZ, who's fallen off a bit on C9 compared to how good he was when you played them all those months back? Is there one where you're thinking like he's not at the same level I saw before?
Well, I saw like the interview of Westrise with Travis where he said that he's not even scared about balls, or like he's more scared about DAOs than balls.
Okay.
And when I played balls at IEM Poland, I thought that he was like probably one of the best top laner I've ever faced. So probably balls fall off a bit, since like even Westrise is not scared about him. But besides, I think bot lane got better in C9. Jungle got probably a bit worse because of the meta.
I think it's just the meta, because the jungle follow Meteos can't have any presence.
Yeah, I think the meta did not help Meteos. I think I got worse and balls got probably worse a bit. I cannot really tell about balls, but I think definitely I got a bit worse. Yeah, and the meta didn't help Meteos. Cannot say much more.
So I asked you before to name your top 3 from NA, and you picked Dignitas, CLG, and then the fourth is either TSM or LMQ. So let's say LMQ, because I think you said if LMQ get their shit together, they'll get the 3rd spot. So we've got those 3 teams there, Dig, CLG, LMQ. Now, for Europe, we already all agreed, like it's Fnatic, Alliance, SK in some order. Now, on early episodes of Summoning Insight, Monte made a comment that I think actually he will stand by now, which is that he thought overall the top 3 from NA would actually just be better than the top 3 from EU when it came to a Worlds type scenario. Do you still agree with this, Monte? Is this still your position?
I do, because I think that SK is just, I think the top 3 in NA are more even. Maybe Alliance or Fnatic has like a higher upside, but I think outside of the top 2 that SK is just like, I don't think SK is going to have a good experience at Worlds. Whereas I think that the top 3 in NA, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think the top 3 in NA would be a little better off on average.
I don't think sOAZ thinks that. I think even if sOAZ thinks Dignitas is good, CLG is good, I think he thinks to himself, if Alliance is playing top level and if we get our game up, we're going to be better than those teams, right?
I agree with Monte about SK. Like, I think SK is gonna be 50-50 or a bit worse than the top American teams, but I think Alliance and us will shit on NA.
Oh.
Bold words.
I mean, if you look at those teams, like what advantage... Okay, I'll ask Monte first. What advantage does CLG or Dignitas have over Alliance?
I think CLG still has a shot calling advantage over both Alliance and Fnatic. I think that Dignitas has very strong solo laners. I would be concerned about Dignitas's bot lane against either Alliance or Fnatic's, just because especially Fnatic's bot lane. I don't know. Like, the thing about Dignitas that remains troubling is what happens when Dignitas gets behind. And I do think that when they do get behind early, that we've talked about this before, but Zion and Shifter are way too passive. And like they won't do things that will get them back into the game. And I do think that it is likely that Dignitas will fall behind because I do think that the solo lanes are generally strong on both Alliance and Fnatic, and that they also have a stronger duo lane. So I think it could be a stylistic mismatch. And I think that's what happens. Like CLG is 2-0 against Fnatic or against Dignitas right now, and it's because our bot lane gets ahead against them. And then even if Zion or Shifter have a lead, if they're behind overall, like they don't translate that lead into a win. And so I think that same problem could crop up against like especially Fnatic.
So do you think sOAZ? Do any of those teams have any advantage over Alliance and Fnatic? Can you think of one? Doesn't mean they're better teams, but can you think of an area that they're stronger in?
Over CLG or...
If CLG and Dignitas plays Fnatic and Alliance, do the NA teams have any strengths that the EU team doesn't have, or are they stronger in any area?
I think at any position, like it's equal or EU is slightly better. And I think I don't really watch the CLG lane swap, but I can say that Dignitas lane swap is a bit weaker than for sure Alliance lane swap.
Our lane swap is fine. I feel.
I didn't see much of yours, but I can say that Dignitas is a bit worse than others in lane swap.
I agree.
When you were describing, you said there like at the position they're either equal or better. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So Yellow Star or Nif equal or better than Afromu?
Yellow Star equal, Nif worse.
Yeah, like Alliance in 2 versus 2 is probably not the it's probably a bit worse than CLG, but I think in lane swap they are probably a bit better.
Oh man, I disagree with that.
I think Tabs is really smart, and he just knows how to play lane swap super.
So what makes this team so good in lane swaps that you're thinking then, Monte? What are we missing?
I just think that we play out the various scenarios with getting farm for our top laner pretty well. And I think that Double Lift has a good idea of when to push and when to freeze right now in terms of a lane swap, and that we have gotten advantages. Even when we lost to LMQ this past week when we lane swapped, because we had that really dumb skirmish in mid lane that was just a terrible idea. Even after that happened, Seraph still got vastly far ahead in terms of farm and levels in that game, despite a really disastrous like early skirmish. So I think that we do know the right calls to make in those kind of situations, and that's something that we've worked really hard on, because I think we started this split in a really bad scenario. Now that said, I think that LMQ is really bad at lane swapping, but
one matchup I would love to see is Alliance versus Dignitas. And one of the reasons I'd love to see that game is because I'd like to see Wickd versus ZionSpartan.
I would love to see that as well.
If they got in the same lane. Because first of all, like ZionSpartan wants to do that like straight up 1v1 style. And Wicked's probably like the best at that style. Like I actually did an interview, I'll drop a little hint for people. I did an interview with Shy, and I asked Shy, like, you played against Wickd, like what did you think of playing this guy? Or I asked him at some point to like name some famous players and what he thought of them. And he picked Wickd, and he said like the way he described it was like Wicked's style is like really physical. Like the whole time he's trying to like bully you and fight you the whole time and constantly do damage to you. Like what do you think this matchup would be like? ZionSpartan versus Wickd. sOAZ?
I think 1v1 it will just depend of matchup. I think it can go either way. I think in terms of lane swap, they are probably equally the same. Like they are both a bit worse in lane swap than in 1v1. But I didn't play Zion, so I cannot really tell. But Wickd is good in 1v1 still.
Okay, can I ask you a question, Monte? Back in the day, people always, the famous thing you say about 1v1 in top lane is that it is just always 1v1, and you're on an island and you just play the game and you're farming your lane and trying to get a slight trade, and then the rest of the game's happening, and then eventually people tell you when to come down and have a team fight. So At the risk, well, why would I even risk sounding rude or offensive? At the risk of sounding offensive, all these players have sort of been pre-selected to be really good at tunneling in on their one lane, and maybe they ask for the jungler every now and then, but that's about it, and they can even play 1v2, and they just play their one lane, and they're living off in a different world. And now suddenly the entire meta is that it's really important that they get to the team on time, or that they're coming in advance, and that the communication is constantly going there. Haven't we sort of like trimmed away all the players who would be really good at just that, and we've left all these super good 1v1 players, and now we're all trying to force them to play a totally opposite style in the hardest lane to figure out, and as a result they all seem like they don't know what they're doing, or they can't, no one can get a really good handle on when to do this and when to do that. Isn't this an issue right now?
An issue? I mean,
well, not
it
for
depends
you
on
if you can manipulate it, but for the players themselves it sounds like an issue, right?
Well, I think that it creates vastly more strategic opportunities for a team. Like, I'm a big fan of lane swapping because it's more interesting and more complex than any other aspect of League of Legends. Like, it's from a fan perspective, maybe some people don't like it because they can't see that 1v1. But for me, like, the decisions that a team makes, like, it opens up a certain strategic freedom and depth that just wasn't there before. And I understand why a lot of top laners don't feel good about that right now. But I think top laners should look at it as an opportunity to really develop themselves and their minds in like you're saying, it's a different skill, right? Previously, you could just walk up into the top lane, do your thing, and maybe you say, hey, jungler, come help me. Or maybe you say, now it's time to go down to the dragon, right? But now, like, the top laner has to make so many intricate decisions about when they go to lane, where they're going to ward in lane, how they're going to use that teleport to get the farm. And I think that for some players, it's extremely rewarding because they can now outthink their opponent in a way that wasn't possible before.
Yeah, okay. As a quick update, I'd just like to confirm that officially sOAZ would like to retract the word shit on them. What he meant was they would convincingly beat them in a manner in which they had comprehensively covered all the bases of how one could win in a game, all the win conditions. Their individual performances would be of a higher caliber relative to theirs, and the other players would have played their best but have lost and be able to say, sir, you clearly defeated me there, I was the inferior player.
Hey, I didn't know you would come and be the censorship police, though.
No, I know. I mean, I just brought us into this, again, this dream job where you can't even say, like, oh, that guy who I'm way better than, I think I could probably beat him. How fucking dare you? You should say that he's really good. Like, what a dream that is. God, no. I wish I could live the dream. Unfortunately, I have to just do my... Like, it's when... Dude, I'll just make this side point. The reason why people do that thing of, like, ruining people's dream job is exactly because it's the dream, right? Their job fucking sucks. So they say, like, I've seen people say stuff like, well, at my job, I have to work, like, with only 1 week holiday and I get fired if I say something bad. Yeah, your job fucking sucks. You work in a post office. I don't think we should make every dream job comparable to working in a post office. I think we should make dream jobs really awesome. Keep your job sucking and you should try and get a dream job. Don't fucking make that guy's
that's
job
part
suck.
of the fun of this job, because now that sOAZ is like, yeah, we're going to shit on NA teams. Like, if we go to Worlds and, like, CLG faces Fnatic and we shit on them, dude, I'm gonna have a fucking field day with this. Are you joking? Like, it's on, buddy. Like, it's fine. Yeah, it's great. It's fun to do this. Like, the trash talk is fun, and I think that's what the fans don't realize. Is like, sOAZ here. I like sOAZ. I love Fnatic. I love talking to sOAZ. Like, we've had a great time at different events. But it's like, if he says he's gonna shit on me, like, I'm not, like, gonna get really offended by that. I think it's great. Whatever. I love the confidence, man.
Yeah, there is no animosity or anything. It's just...
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what the fans don't realize is that, you know, we're all here and we're all, like, getting along just fine, but the trash talk is fun and also necessary for confidence as well. It's important to think these things as a team and to have that, like, attitude going in, because that gets you in the right mindset for competition.
Like, here's the thing is, like, let me think. Okay, I'll give you an analogy of how I'll bring Monte into our world here, sOAZ. I'll explain to Monte how European people in League of Legends see NA, okay? Because he's going to be, like, coming from the NA perspective, and maybe he has a little inkling, but he won't fully get the atmosphere, I don't think, okay? So you know every single season of League of Legends, sOAZ, that what would happen was NA is the most popular scene, it has the most exposure, partly because they have all their own fans of NA, and then they have some European fans who like to watch them, and they have people who stay up and late and they watch those games. So they have more people watching. And so NA gets this sense that like we're the most, out of Europe and NA, we're the most important, right? We have the most entertaining games, we're the best region. And so every split goes like, every season goes like this, doesn't it? So it's like they play each other and they're beating each other, and then whoever's on top is like really confident, like, yeah, we're really good. And you know what? The Europeans are not that good. We're going to go and we're going to beat them. And in Europe, no one's really been thinking about NA. They've just been playing each other. And they look over at the NA guys and they're like, oh, that's cute. They think that they're going to come over. Don't tell them. Just wait till they get here. We'll have some fun. Like when they arrive, like let them talk shit. And then when they arrive, same thing happens pretty much every time. Like the NA teams do slightly worse or much worse, and then the EU teams do pretty well, with the exception of exhibition tournaments where people aren't actually playing with their real teams. I've noticed then NA is fucking magical. Yeah, it's weird when you don't actually need a team or strategy or practice.
Yeah, it's true.
Suddenly it evens it up. What could be the factor that's separating the regions? I can't figure that out. Side point. Anyway, so the NA teams come over, they do badly again, they go back home, they beat each other up again in the gym, like Rocky and Apollo. They get their confidence up, they think they're going to come over, they're going to do well again. It's sort of like the problem NA makes, right? Here's the key problem, Monte. They think that confidence alone is like the best indicator that you're going to do well. So I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I had this computer system that was really good, and I had loads of games. And so if like one of my like uncles had a kid who's like 8 and I'm like 13, he'd like have the kid come over to my house and let him play, like, and say like, oh, let him play with you on the computer, you know. And so that kid had come round, and let's say I've been playing like Street Fighter or something, and I'm like really good, and this kid has maybe played Street Fighter a few times, and he thinks he's good. He's gonna be like talking shit to me, like, yeah, I'm gonna beat you so good, like I'm gonna play Chun-Li and do the kicks, I'm gonna beat you. And listen, that's cool, like he should be confident, but his confidence there has no impact on the result of this game. Okay, he can be as confident as he wants. I can say nothing. I'm still gonna whoop that ass when we get in the game. Okay, so I sort of just think, yeah, it's kind of cute that he thinks he's gonna win. Like, let's actually play the game. Okay, I win. Goodbye. Go home with your dad. Like, I win. Okay. So that's sort of, Monte, how we in Europe see our little brother NA. Okay, you know, the colonies. This upstart colony that's turned into a country. Yeah, you got big. Things got big. You blew it up a bit, but you're still the upstarts. Do you kind of see where we're coming from here, Monte?
I think you're just salty because America is the dominant world power now. So,
well, except in computer games. In computer games, again, where there's no different factor like money or politics, when you have to actually prove it from the strength of your own character and your own skills and intelligence, suddenly that evens the playing field.
That's why we steal all the European players, right? It's the strategy.
And Koreans now.
Yeah, we just beat you with other people.
sOAZ,
because we can't do it ourselves.
I want to ask you. I've got a question for you, a real question, sOAZ. You know, whenever people say that like EU's weak and that all the best players are going to NA, what do you think about the fact that nearly all the European players who go to NA were either bad people who couldn't compete anymore or were in like relegation? What do you think of that trend?
I don't think it's any bad. I think it's like a good opportunity for them for sure. But like, let's say Renekton, when he was in Europe, he was like a great mid laner, but he wasn't even like the best in Europe. And then he goes to NA and he just like wrecked everyone. So
sure.
I just felt like the mid laner of NA were kind of weak, and I don't know. The rivalry between NA and Europe I just think it's fun. But it's always funny because NA is always super confident, but the same happens every year, so.
Yeah, it's true. Things have changed though now, I think. So
with CLG, hopefully.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, Ben. Who knows? I can only hope. But I'm just saying, like, I think that it's different because NA has like been very active about recruiting players from other regions, and because the infrastructure has improved so much this year compared to ever before, really. So we'll see. You may well be right. So as you may well be right, but I think NA can do better this year.
I think NA got a lot better as well, but. Yeah, I think they will at Worlds. They will do for sure a lot better than last time.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I've got a question for you then. Everyone, okay, I'll put it like this: everyone who's a fan of NA and wants to keep the trash talk up, wants to keep the rivalry going. You know, let's keep like the continental rivalries going, and let's say who was better and stuff. You guys need to become the biggest fans of Dignitas in this world. Because remember who sOAZ said is going to Worlds, okay? CLG. Well, how many players from NA are in CLG? 3. There's the answer, 3. How many players in LMQ are from NA? 0. They're all Chinese. So at the moment, we've got like possibly 8 players who are going to go for the NA region out of 15 to represent NA. So now in Europe, let me just check. There's 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, that's right. They're all 15 are going to be from Europe. Okay, I just had to check that. So at that point, again, you know, you better hope if LMQ does really well. By the way, the NA versus EU thing's over. It's over. Actually, sOAZ, do you think in season 5, do you think there'll be Koreans in Europe?
In Europe?
Yeah.
I think it's gonna depend on the structure. But I just think like NA have just more like any structure have just more.
They have more money, right?
Not just more money than Europeans, so that's why as well like most of the Europeans doesn't have like coach and stuff like this because like their structure just don't really want to pay a coach or an analyst, so we will see. But it's possible.
Yeah, and talking about coming into Worlds too for NA, I just want to say that like NA was fucking shit at Worlds last year. So it's not actually that difficult to improve. You know, like TSM was 2-6 in group stages. They beat Gaming Gear.
They did beat Lemon Dogs one game.
And they beat Lemon Dogs one game. That's it though. And then Vulcan was 3-5. They beat Fnatic. They were Fnatic's only loss in the group stage.
Yeah.
And
then what? They beat Mineski.
Yeah. And then they even lost to Ozone twice.
Yeah. Which is funny to say, but true.
Okay, just to complete the cycle of my questions there, I'll just quickly ask sOAZ, and we don't have to spend a long time on it. Just I want to see his reaction. sOAZ, in season 5, do you think any EU team will recruit like a top NA player? Would it ever happen? Could you see any circumstances?
If he's teamless, why not? Like you have to take all opportunities.
Do you think it'll ever go the other way though?
Like what, NA to Europe or?
Yeah, an NA player will come to Europe.
Yeah,
I think
possible.
if Shifter was available, then it's possible.
But most of the mid laners in the top teams I'm talking, not the. Well, maybe in like lower team, but I don't know. Most of the top teams are like fixed. I don't think there is any player to change, or maybe one if he still for a long time. Which team could Chapter have go to though?
If okay, so recently also Alex Sitch just announced yesterday he was moving to mid lane, and he's coming back there, and he likes this meta, and he's going to play it. So listen, you're safe. He's not playing top lane anymore. He doesn't even care about top lane anymore. Don't worry, he's not going to worry about what you say. I'm sure you must have played against Alex Sitch in top lane, right?
Yeah, I played against him in scrims, yeah.
Was he any good?
I think I played like 3 or 4 games.
Okay, so no, yeah.
But it was like 1 or 2 weeks before he swapped to top lane, where he screamed him.
Obviously, yeah, sure.
He wasn't like.
How could he be? You know,
not that great. See, he was not that great, but for sure he had potential.
Oh, potential intensifies. Alex Sitch intensifies in the top lane. What the fuck does that mean? Like, no, well, he was actually trash, but I felt like he could have been good if.
No, he was not trash.
No, he was okay though. He was just okay.
No, I think he was.
sOAZ, who was better? Mima or Alex Sitch in top lane?
What?
Who's better, Mima or Alex Sitch in top lane?
Alex Sitch.
Take that, Mima. I could have got either way with that one. I'm just being a dick. Whatever. Well, if you love potential, though, Mima's the man, right? I mean, Mima has the potential to have all 50 accounts in Challenger.
Yeah.
That's the potential this guy has. Yeah.
And you have the best KD of top lane. Wickd told me.
Well, listen, if Wicked tells you something, that's gospel right there. So you can take that check to the bank, cash it, get the full amount, invest that in Google stocks. They go up. Now you're rich. You just got rich right there. Think about it. Okay, I've got a real question for you that I've just remembered that Monte's going to like. Monte is a really big fan of this Irelia build that Wickd does. And for some reason, he got to you, didn't he, sOAZ? He got you, and he strapped you down to a chair, and he gave you like drugs that affected your mind, and he brainwashed you. He made you believe this Irelia build.
Zerker alacrity before Triforce.
He made you believe this build was good. How did he do it? What did he tell you to convince you?
Yeah, I want to know too.
What?
I want to know too.
How did Wickd what did he say to convince you this is a really good build? It must have been something really... Listen, when I talk to Wickd, I can't deny he will explain things in a certain way where it's like I get trapped in his logical loops and I start thinking, yeah, no, you're right. What way is there out of that? Like, you have a point. So what was his explanation for that build that made you think it was good?
The build for what?
The super mobility Irelia build where you go berserkers with alacrity before Trinity Force.
He didn't. I didn't really talk to him about Irelia, but about Wickd, like I can say he's a good player, but we are like so different than each other. Like we when I talk to him about anything, about any champion or build, we just don't agree with each other at all.
I mean, I'll be fair. I think that's Wickd in everyone, but okay, keep going.
Yeah,
I don't think you're the distinguishing factor here.
It's a bit the same with me, but not like as much.
Okay. What is sOAZ's best champion right now?
My best champion? I don't know. Wait, let me check the champions.
Yorrick. It's Yorrick forever.
My best champion.
This is what happens in pick ban, isn't it? That's what he has himself in his own mind.
Let me just look at him for a second.
Yeah, I just look at him.
And then he goes through the ball and he's like, Garen, do we still play that top lane? I can't remember. I haven't seen any. I play it top lane, but does anyone else?
The champion I played the most in solo queue and that I played the most is probably Lee Sin. Like, I can say I'm not the best like mechanic players, but I know what I have to do with the champion.
Zion must love playing on a team with you. He's like, there are only 3 good junglers, and sOAZ is busy taking one of mine.
Yeah, he's always like, if we play 18 scrims or in LCS, he's like, fuck you, sOAZ. Nah, I don't know. I don't think I have like one best champion.
What do you think your best champion of all time is? Do you have a signature?
Of all time?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a hard question.
Can you think of one, Monte? Is there a champion that's associated with
I would say Kennen or Lissandra, maybe?
Lissandra, that might be it. I think people would say Lissandra, right?
Well, because no one was playing it, but Kennen as well.
Why can't Kennen be played now? Even by sOAZ, even fucking sOAZ won't play it. So
Kennen was walking before. Kennen was walking before because you could snowball your lane really hard. But now people will just lane swap against it.
Let's go the other way. sOAZ, Monte picked out Aatrox. Is there any top lane champions that they play in NA that you think that's a weird choice, or I don't know why they do that? Is there anything you can think of in their meta?
Renekton is shit.
Haven't you always said that for like 4 years though, dude? Like, didn't you?
That is so wrong.
Like, I'm pretty sure Riot, the guy who designed Renekton, met up with you in a bar in Paris, like, and he just scribbled down on a napkin, like, I got this champion I created, Renekton, and you were like, looks like shit, I never play it. And then no matter what happened, you just never would play it ever. Like, come on, at one point in time, it was a pretty good champion, right?
I think he's just he dislikes the fact that there is the French Renekton cosplayer has now like created this like French Renekton stereotype that he's like trying to break.
But I started playing Renekton right after Worlds, I remember, and I played it for I don't know how many LCS games, but I played it a lot, and it was the time when everyone was playing Renekton and Shyvana. I was playing Renekton and Shyvana. I was playing the meta champion, But I just don't think like
You're
right
so
now in
proud
the
of it,
meta, I
aren't you?
don't
When
think
you
it's
like those rare moments when you're playing. I bet you actually say that in pick one. You're like, look, guys, I'm playing the meta champion. And they're like, yeah, finally, motherfucker. Like, let's get in this game.
I think. Oh no. I think actually, sOAZ was the French Renekton cosplayer, and then he's
Okay.
upset that everybody makes fun of the French Renekton. That's it. It was you in the fucking crocodile costume.
It's actually me, yeah.
Oh man. So why do you hate Renekton?
Yeah, why?
In the meta right now, I just think there is like so much better
Like what?
than him. Like everything.
Well, that's one
Gra-
thing.
Gra- 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 Gragas is. Let's say Gragas is a better Renekton on top lane. Gragas is a better Renekton. He's really tanky. You have more utility, and you can do a lot more than what Renekton can do.
I think the advantage with Renekton is that you have a lot of opportunities to create an early snowball and have some good lane aggression going down. Yes, he's not as good at a lane swap, but he's still fine in the late game. Not great, but he's okay.
Well, compared to a lot of top laner, I don't scale as good. But Gragas, for example, is good 1v1, is a lot better than Renekton in lane swap, and after lane swap, he will probably beat Renekton, I believe.
I agree with you. But what I like about Renekton is just the kill pressure in a 1v1 lane. And yeah, he is worse in lane swaps, but when you play Renekton, you don't play him for the lane swap, right? But he still can lane swap, right? If you were the way I look at Renekton is he's like, sure, if you want the 1v1 and you can guarantee that, then we'd see more Kennen, we'd see more Rumble, we'd see more of these champions. Yeah. Renekton is still, he's like not as good as most others, but he is like better in the 1v1. So you're trading like not quite as good of a lane swap for higher kill potential in the 1v1.
Yeah.
And playing against Renekton Elise, man, if you're a top laner, dude, the fucking nightmare, like you're going to die. There's almost nothing you can do.
It have really good diving potential, but let's say somehow you die in 1v1 as Renekton, then your game is like fucked. Like,
that's true.
If you die
I'm not saying
I'm
not saying he's like the best or there's no downside, but I don't think he's shit.
I don't think he's that bad, but I think let's say there is just a lot better. I think there is 6 to 8 champion a lot better than Renekton in the viable current meta.
Why doesn't sOAZ play Rise?
Rise is so unskilled, dude. Cannot play that.
Save, Flame, they're just not skilled players. They don't know what they do. They need to maximize their skill. Why do you think Koreans play it, but sOAZ doesn't?
Because he at the time or what?
They play it now, dude. They play it like last week and stuff.
No, Rise is really dominant in laning phase, and if you can force the 1v1, he's really good.
But you're never going to do that. You'd prefer to play Ziggs.
Yeah, I would play Ziggs against Rise.
Prefer to play Lee Sin over Rise?
Yeah.
Any reason?
Lee Sin is more fun.
Sometimes I feel like when I ask sOAZ if there's a reason, I'm not actually asking him to explain to me. I'm asking him to explain it to himself first. And he's like trying to figure it out. Like, yeah, why do I play Lee Sin over Rise?
Yeah, Lee Sin scales horribly. What are you talking about? The Renekton pick, dude. Why do you pick Lee Sin?
Because if you land that
he's like,
you go in.
He's great. He's great like in a 1v1. He doesn't scale well. He's not awesome in a lane swap. Like, okay, you can play Lee Sin top. Are they playing Jax? Okay, yes, Lee Sin's still good late game due to attack speed slow. Like, but otherwise you're like, why do you like Lee Sin over Renekton? I'm very curious.
Because of lane swap. Like if you play really good Lee Sin in lane swap, it's just super strong.
Because why?
You just have like so much farming potential, and just you depends of your jungle. But if you have like, it really depends. But I just like Lee Sin.
No, I think that's the answer right there. Just like
That's the answer.
I don't know.
You're like, I'm a cutie pie playing Ezreal. You're just like, I'm going to play it regardless of the meta. I just like it, yeah. Fun champion.
No. I think this is a strong champion in the current meta. Most like not in 1v1. He will do equal against most of the champ or lose due to not scaling good into late game, as Monte said. But in late swap case, like you cannot deny this like scaling against the other top laner, and you just like do what you have to do in team fight compared to the other one. Since he's not gonna be that strong, like you're not gonna be strong, but he's not gonna be strong either. And then if you do good in team fight, it's kinda GG.
Okay.
I don't know what to say, man. I see exactly the same problems with Lee Sin that you have with Renekton, except I think they're magnified even more. So.
I don't think Lee Sin scale worse than Renekton though. I think Lee Sin is scaled better than Renekton.
Am I missing something when you said about how you don't like to play Shyvana because like she just gets killed in a second if you go into the fight, like instantly blown up? So
No,
how
it
is
was
Lee Sin
against the
different?
matchup. You're taking what I said.
Okay,
Like,
maybe I'm mistaken. Correct me.
nah, it was when Monte told me about the Yorrick pick against
Yeah.
Alliance.
That was right.
It's because I was last pick and they had Orianna mid, which is great against like Shyvana, Renekton, and all these middies.
Mm-hmm.
They had Kog'Maw as AD, which is good against all the middies and the tanks. And they had Lulu top for the protection and stuff, so why would you pick like something to go in? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Monty. Why would you?
Because you can always flank with Shyvana and get into the backline anyway if you play your map positioning right. I do agree it's harder, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, so as you can always just flank and then get into the back line with Shyvana, so...
Are you just
I'm like
repeating
acting as a
things now?
translator here. No, I'm asking sOAZ to respond to that.
No. No, I was thinking like... Yeah, you can flank with Shyvana, but if you don't get this flank, like it's... You don't do anything.
Well, Monty, if you get this flank, then you don't do anything. Am I like functioning as a communicator? Can people respond to each other?
I think the problem too. I think with Shyvana too, the problem is the thresh pick because you can always get flayed out of your ultimate. And I do agree that
they had Thresh as well, right? You had
right, but
Lulu, Thresh,
Lulu,
Kog'Maw,
Eve,
Orianna.
Kog'Maw, Orianna, Thresh. But in this situation, like what I would say is, how are you going to like engage or even get into a team fight? Because shouldn't they just kite you with Thresh Box and Glitter Lance and like Orianna?
That's what they're kind of doing with the Yorrick, but at least kind of utility support.
Okay, so you use it for the ult. Yeah. I mean, the ult with Syndra is not bad. I'm not saying it was an absolutely. I was just giving you shit
Syndra
earlier.
is not the like. I agree with you that Yorrick was not like a great pick in our setup, but I just think that there's not much better choice. Maybe if I would have practiced it, I could have got Trundle there. I don't think Trundle would have been bad. And I could have go Mundo as well, but I didn't practice these two champ, and
that's
I just
good.
feel more comfortable with Yorrick. I think these two champs could have worked as well.
That's a great reason to do it, though. Like if you've been practicing the York pick, then you should go with what you practice.
I didn't practice it either, but
damn.
Yorrick is just
He was trying to help you out
much
there.
more easier. Yorrick is just so easy to play
Isn't Mundo easy to play though?
and great in the matchup.
Okay.
Yorrick was really good against Lulu in matchup as well.
Okay, fair enough. I think that is true. Mundo would have probably a harder time. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just. I agree. It's hard for a top laner against that composition to really get in for sure. I thank you for explaining your reasoning behind it.
You're welcome.
Right, if you want to go now, sOAZ, you can go and me and Monty will just wrap up and talk about Korea. Sound good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show,
Thanks
mate.
thanks for inviting me. And
Yeah, it's been great.
Good night.
Thank you so much for coming.
Welcome. Bye. Good night.
See ya.
Good night.
Right, well, we should be back now. So now we will proceed to talking about little guys from Southeast Asia, but not the bad part of Southeast Asia. In fact, the part that's so good, they don't even call it Southeast Asia anymore. They call it its own region. They call it like its own continent, even though it's one country. Of course, talking about Korea.
It's like half a country, man.
Man, I don't know if the top half is even half a country. It's like 90% of a country. Okay, so the first place I would start here, Monte, is your faith has been shaken. Your gods have been shown to be nothing but false idols. Okay, the one thing we could have agreed on, Monte, is that, you know, how amazing is Samsung Blue? Even if SKT fall off, even if White Shield goes to shit, we all know at least you can rely on Blue. Blue are going to be there, and we're going to beat the only teams who can even come close is people like SKT, and they push them to their limit. What happened, Monte? All of a sudden, I turned on a stream one day, and it was sort of like Blue were getting the shit kicked out of them by like a bad team, right?
Well, what happened, I think, was first off, they were winning the game before the pause. Basically, we had an hour and a half pause right there. And just because, you know, looking at what was going on with Samsung Blue and watching the players after the pause is that like they mega tilted after that pause. Dade looked really upset about the whole pause scenario. So I think that was a big factor right there for Samsung Blue. And yeah, I think they just had an off game because of the pause. But we'll see if it reveals anything going forward because they got fucking crushed by IM2.
And IM2, remember, is actually the good IM. They're the one who thrashed IM1 the other day and Frozen went crazy on Syndra. So they actually, in theory, are the good one.
Yeah. They're actually okay. And to be fair to IM number 2, they snowballed their lead really, really well that game. That was like by far the best I've seen them play. So in terms of their rotations and everything like that, they looked fantastic. And yeah, they played a good game. They did.
Remember how much fun we made of how White Shield has no chance to get out of the group because they need a miracle. They need two things to happen. First of all, they need Bullets and Falcons. They need neither team to win the game. If either wins the game, they're out. They need a draw. Then they need Falcon to actually beat Black Sword for them. Black Sword, they need Black Sword to beat Falcons, okay?
Yeah, they need Black Sword to 2-0 them. But even in a 1-1 draw, at least Shield will have a chance to play for a tiebreaker.
Here's the problem. The first part of it, the most unlikely part, happened, right? It went 1-1 between Bullets and Falcons. So now, how high are Shield's chance? I mean, you have to figure Sword, in theory, should 2-0, right?
Well, I don't know, because like Sword and Shield split 1-1, and the Falcons and Shield split 1-1. And the Falcons did look good in the second game against the Bullets. So I think that the key for Najim Blacksword is to ban out Gragas, because I don't think you let Rock have that champion because he's so good on top lane Gragas, and their wins have come with top lane Gragas. So if they do that and they have a good game plan going in, I think Sword can 2-0. But Sword is still a very new team. I mean, there's a lot of like just solo queue talent there, and they made all of these like big roster changes, right? So they can still fall prey to, I think, some inconsistency. And Sword is also really bad at lane swapping. So if I was the Falcons, I would try to abuse that as much as I could. Because, like, their jungler, Sword's jungler, is just like, he's solo queue. So he's not really used to playing in the professional scene or used to that kind of lane swap meta as I think other more experienced junglers are. So I think that's a big problem with Sword. Either way, I mean, I think whoever gets out of Group B is not going to go very far in the bracket stage.
What's sick is I think Shield's going to get out. I think all that's going to happen is Black Sword will just win 2-0, and then Shield somehow will do one of those miracle, like where like an SK Telecom style thing where it's like you shouldn't survive the group stage, but somehow you do.
Yeah, I think that they can beat the Falcons in a tiebreaker as well.
No, that's the other thing. If it goes to a tiebreaker, that's the unfortunate thing.
Falcons have to win 2-0. Otherwise, it goes to a tiebreaker, or the Shield just gets out. So Shield, I think we'll see how it goes, but Shield may luck out.
So again, our faith was shaken, where in Group C, we all wanted to believe that Frost had turned it around, right? Frost can be good now. They can actually do it. Like we know the storyline is they beat SK Telecom, they won NLB, they're improving season on season. What the fuck's going on with Frost now? They look bad, right?
Oh yeah, they look They look really bad. And they have to play against SKTS. And I'm still the guy who's sitting there and saying, like, SKTS is like, they're vastly overhyped. Like, this team is really, SKTS is one-dimensional as all hell. Like, they're not one-dimensional in a way that can consistently make the semifinals like CJ Blaze is.
Sure.
Except for now. I'm sorry about CJ Blaze, Thorin.
Oh,
I know. So yeah, I think that SKTS is just not very like they're good enough to beat the bad teams consistently, but they're just like not. At least Blaze has more individual like raw talent to help them get wins, and they've got Flame. Like SKTS, like who do they have really that's noteworthy?
Easy Hoon.
He's not very noteworthy.
No,
like
that's
Bang,
all they've got,
Bang is probably their best player, right?
They've had no stars emerge. That's the problem.
Well, Bang always has like a ridiculously high KDA, but he's not enough to like.
Well, put it this way: they have no player who's considered top 5 at his position.
And they have no big playmaker either. It's like, I don't know. Maybe Horo would be considered their playmaker. I don't know, but they're just
one of
like
the reasons why I always am a little bit skeptical of giving too much credit to like Korean coaches. Because, like, okay, SK Telecom T1, yeah, great job. You put the team together, it's awesome. That also happened to be one of the best teams ever, and some of those players are going to go down as, like, all-time great players. So there's also a luck element of, like, lucking into the right mix or right players. Whereas if they really were the geniuses of constructing teams, then you'd think this S team would be good. Whereas actually this S team looks like it hit its ceiling pretty quickly. It's never going anywhere since then. Yeah,
and it doesn't look like they're ever going to be really better. But like the skill ceiling, I think, on that team has really been maxed out. So maybe Wolf will get better. Wolf is pretty good.
So here's your dilemma, Monte, as we move to Group D. Here's an extremely important concept I want to express to you. There was, in Counter-Strike, there was once a year where this team went on an all-time great year and they won the most money and they won all these major tournaments. And I once interviewed one of these players and I was asking him, like, oh, you like, there's these other 2 teams who are like elite in the world and you compete with them and it can be back and forth. But this 4th team, like, you always beat them. So I guess it was like taken for granted that you would beat them. And this player told me, like, no, I think they're actually still one of the best teams in the world. Like, they're a very tough team. And when we face them, we're worried, actually. And when we beat them, we're like, wow, we did it again. And at the time, I thought to myself, like, there's no way he can really believe that. Because, like, when I look at this team, like, I know they're much better than that team. And that team isn't on his level. And what I realized was what he was doing that was really clever was he did know that that team was slightly worse. But by creating them in the public's mind as a rival, then he was giving himself extra credit when they would beat them. He was bumping himself up by making them legit. Then it was a legit win. So here's the problem. You can see where I'm going with this, Monte. You can play this 2 ways, my friend. Either this new Arrows bandwagon that you've jumped on, they're actually really good now. You know what? The key thing about Blaze is they only lose to elite teams, Monte. So either Arrows has just made that jump up and they've managed to beat Blaze, which shows that Arrows is now an elite team and we can start believing in them as a potential winner. Or, here's the other way, or Blaze has fallen off, Blaze was terrible, they played badly, in which case, a little bit of that credit goes away, you know. Now Arrows has just beaten a team that was falling off of it. So which is it, Monte? Which column A or column B? You can't get both wins here. You have to pick which one you want.
Oh, okay, so you're just forcing me into a false choice? No, I reject your proposal, sir. But basically what I think about the Arrows, and people are like, I think that they are being overhyped because people are like, yes, the Arrows, they're finally consistent. I'm like, where's your evidence that they're finally consistent? Because if we remember, they 2-0'd SK Telecom K last season. They 2-0'd a good team that was slumping, and I do think Blaze is slumping right now. And then they went and got rocked in the quarterfinals. Like, for me, I still hold by my opinion that on a good day, the Arrows are amazing, and on a bad day, they're just absolute trash. And we've seen that so far this season. I mean, their games against the Stealths, like, they went from dominant to like the dumpster in like the matter of 2 games, right? And the Arrows need to show like much greater consistency. So the playoffs are going to be really important for them because, yeah, I think that they've got a lot to prove, and it doesn't prove to me much of anything. I still think the Arrows' upside is incredibly high, but you don't know which Arrows you're going to see. So against Blaze, it was good. Against SK Telecom K last season, the amazing Arrows showed up, and they just looked really cool, like really good. But who knows, man? Who knows?
So now, even though so now tell me the Blaze side of it. Were Blaze particularly bad?
Blaze have been playing pretty poorly, I think.
So listen, another one of Monte's hype trains is stealths, and he's been riding that mother for so long. It's like finally they've got to come up with something, but he like deliver on all this bullshit. So do you really? So does your hatred of Blaze enough propel you to believe that stealths will beat them?
No, I think it's going to be a 1-1.
Well, then it would be a 3-way tie. No, actually, not because KKR is going to win. Okay, so then it would be a 2-way tie for. No, then Blaze would be out. So stealths just have to tie, and then Blaze is out.
Yeah. I think it'll be a 1-1. I just think that if you look at the games...
Why will it be a tie between those two teams? Look at that fucking roster of stealths.
What about it?
Oh, the wonderful Captain Jack. Oh yeah,
Captain Jack is having a really good season, man.
Dope.
Trace is good.
What? Trace is okay. I've never had any problem with Trace.
Captain Jack has been doing really well.
Where does he rank in the AD?
Look, I hate to burst your bubble. Thorin, but Blaze was this close to losing to MKZ, the zombie IM. What is that? Why are they down
they're bad.
2?
I just don't think stealths are that good. That's the problem. Listen, once they get to the playoffs, I don't have any expectation Blaze is going far, but I don't see why they don't beat stealths here.
I don't know. I think 1-1. I think the stealths can definitely pull it out. I think that Captain Jack is actually playing really well right now, and I think that Trace is less ego-filled than Flame, and therefore will do a little bit better.
Doesn't this have the potential then, by the rundown we just gave of some of the outcomes, of actually being one of the weakest playoffs in OGN?
I think you're right.
Think of the trash that can get out of Group B. Group D could be stealths along with arrows. Group C, at the moment, is looking like it fucking could be like SKTS. And then, you've barely got any really... think about how strong the last round of it was.
Oh, okay. I think it's unfair to compare it to last season, because I think actually the playoffs last season, that was the best playoffs in OGN history. So many blind picks, game 5ing it 2 rounds in a row, and the Bullets nearly winning in the quarterfinals, and then the Blaze nearly winning in the semifinals. It was really even. It was really hard to say who was going to get through that season, right? And I do think that the top teams are pretty unquestionably SK Telecom K and Samsung Blue, because Samsung White still has very odd inconsistency issues. Usually they get their shit together by the playoffs, but the fact that they dropped that game against S was a little troubling.
I think that's I think we've pretty much covered it all there. There wasn't anything super fantastic in those first few weeks, and we're basically waiting for the groups to end. Is there anything else on Korea that we need to mention?
I'm trying to think. Not really. I mean, besides the results that we just talked about, the Arrows had that great performance against Blaze.
Actually, I have a question, though. In terms of S.H.I.E.L.D., if S.H.I.E.L.D. don't get through, which could happen, even though I'd say that they've now got a decent chance, wouldn't that probably be the worst drop-off in a single season? From going from OGN finals to out in group stage?
Yep.
And in a weak group, in theory.
Yep.
I can't think of anything comparable, because usually
absolutely
the drop-off is finals is never that bad.
It would be horrible. It would be horrible. That would be just an incredibly disappointing performance. And especially for S.H.I.E.L.D., which had a high probability to get to Worlds, or at least they'll still be in the qualifier.
Sure.
Yeah, they'll still be in the qualifiers, but man, they have a lot of circuit points right now. So I think, it's really interesting, because I think the battle for the 3rd spot in Korea is going to be really fascinating. Just because it could
the points is a mess right now, isn't it? One of the problems is the people have got points for getting a final, but then someone else has got points for NLB and stuff. And so at the moment, actually, once you get past the top 2 or 3 names, people have barely any, actually, if you look at the amount.
Yeah, well, no, that's not entirely true, because you're going to have 2 teams up there, and then probably 5 or maybe 4 teams.
I'll tell you the points right now. At the moment, Galaxy, Blue and SK Telecom K both have 450.
Yeah.
Then White have 375.
Mm-hmm.
S.H.I.E.L.D. have 325. And after that, you drop down to 190 for KT Bullets. So it's KT Bullets, so you can forget that already. Then next after that is Blaze with 175. Then Sword has 120, and that's Sword, so they're probably not going that far. once you get past the top two, it's basically just White and Shield are certainly in the qualifier, and then the rest have to pretty much win OGN.
Yep.
Because you only get 400 points for winning OGN.
Right. And I think the potential good team that is not right now in the top 6, because I assume, I haven't heard this for sure, but in previous years it's like top 2 go through, and then spots 3 through 6 battle in the gauntlet. Like the Arrows are the team that really need to
they only have 40 points.
Make the finals. If they have to make the finals, if they want to have a shot.
Finals gets you 225 points.
Right.
So added to their 40, that would be 265, which
is good.
That's going to be like 5th or 6th because
but the
Blaze or someone does well,
Right, and assuming that Sword does poorly. Sword, if they even make the quarters, they have to make further than the quarters. If they make the semis, they're going to be in a good position. Blaze may be out, which would be really bad for them. And also it depends on how NLB goes too. Obviously there are a lot of factors, but Arrows could pretty much guarantee themselves 5th or 6th place with a finish in the finals. But I think that would be unlikely. I think it'd be really hard for them. I mean, I honestly think the most likely scenario is K versus Blue finals, which would be pretty cool.
And plus, in terms of the qualifier, at the moment, just because of how many of those teams, look at those teams I named there. Shield, Bullets, Blaze, Black Sword, and Frost. Out of those teams, none of them sound strong. And so as a result, even if White's not that well, you have to figure White is the favourite to win that playoff.
Yep.
If they're the 3rd spot. So amazingly...
Unless I will say this again, unless the Arrows, get their shit together. The Arrows will call them...
majorly get their shit together to make the final.
Yeah, if they get their shit together, it's they're like the LMQ equivalent, the sOAZ LMQ equivalent of Korea.
Unfortunately for them as well, there's also the scenario where they can get fucked completely just by the bracket draw. Let's say they win their group. Well,
and then
what if they get
hit SKTKA? Yeah.
That's insanely bad for you, right? You can't make it. That could be let me see what 8th place gives you. It doesn't give you anything because you go to NLB, and if you have to win NLB to get 75 points, that's nothing. So basically, they have to make semi-finals minimum, and even then, probably a lot more.
No, they really have to make finals. They really just have to make finals. Yeah, because you get 100 points for.
So okay, here's the insane
you get 100
thing.
points for semifinals, which only would put them at 140, and that's not even top 6 right now. So they have to make finals.
So Ozone could actually qualify in 3rd again, despite again not being in their peak form. And I'll drop another hint from an interview. I did an interview with Dandy, and so obviously I asked him, you made this comment in the West that you're famous for, where you said that no Korean team would lose to a Western team. And obviously he looked really sheepish, because they fucking lost themselves to a bunch, and so his follow-up though was baller. His line was, he said, okay, I know I was wrong then, and that was all wrong, and I underestimated the teams. But if I go this year, then even if I have to bleed to make it happen, I'll make sure that statement is true. Which is okay, he's doubled down. Nice little trash talk there. Let's see how this works. So I would love to see Ozone for that reason go, It
would be fun.
See them play Alliance and, all those. That would be awesome.
It would be great. So we'll see how they do, though. I mean, it seems like they are the strongest candidate right now. But possibly, I think that with Blaze kind of slumping, with Sword being so new... there's not a lot of other competition. The Bullets being out in groups, and obviously the Bullets looking really weak. Naj and Shield in a mega slump. Who else is going to take it? For me, it's between the Arrows and Naj and White Shield and Samsung White. Those are the most likely candidates, with Samsung White being pretty far in the lead.
Okay, so I think in general we've covered everything this time. We didn't talk about it much because we'll get it on another episode. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that would be, I think, Riot's nightmare scenario is if both Samsung teams go and then end up meeting in the World Finals.
No, I would love that.
I would love that, but I think that Riot would absolutely hate that one sponsor got 2 teams in because, they don't let them have 2 teams in other regions and blah, 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 blah. We should talk about, we still haven't talked about, what about Riot splitting up the
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The World Championship, because we never actually got to discuss that.
So here's the thing, I'll set the stage like this. Everyone thinks that they know what's going to come now, which is that we're going to bash Riot, we're going to say it's a really bad decision. But Monte actually thinks this isn't that bad a decision.
No, I don't. I do understand. Well, it's hard for me to say because I knew about this a long time ago. So it wasn't really a surprise to me when the decision, because I knew. But I think the concept, it could be really amazing because, for example, back in the day, like CLGU and TPA had like a show match and it was the GPL finals in Taipei, and there were like 50,000 live spectators. Like they put it in like this courtyard in a mall, and there were like 7 stories, and like people were just all like lined up around the edges. I mean, the viewership, the audience could be absolutely incredible at some of these venues. And I think that's a real positive to spreading it out. And also, I think what people may not understand is that at last year's Worlds, people are like, well, why would Riot like suddenly do this? Well, there was already talk among the Riot staff while I was there at last year's Worlds about maybe like it was a mistake, or maybe it wasn't not a mistake, but maybe it wasn't the best just to have everything in Los Angeles, because the way the tournament was structured, like it was the semis were like a Thursday, Friday, and then the following Saturday was the World Championship. And so if you wanted to come to LA for both, you kind of had to take 2 weeks off of work just due to travel time and everything like that. So it was a pretty large investment of time if you wanted to come for both. And so as such, most people were like, well, if I'm going to go fly in for this, I want to go to the World Championship, obviously. So as a result, the semifinals didn't sell out at the Galen Center. And I think that had they done something like had the semis in New York, where people from New York go and were much more excited about it, and having it in different locations, I think is better to ensure that you fill venues and you give more people an opportunity to go see it who may not have the time or money to go travel to these other events. Would have been really cool. And in fact, I think it's fun to have it more World Cup style, where you have multiple cities or multiple, in this case, multiple countries, but in the US's case, like multiple cities. Now, that said, I do understand why the Korean fans are angry. And, the Korean fans, I think most of the main complaints are, well, we wanted to see these other teams play. We wanted to like see these other players, because their attitude is, 3 of the 8 teams in the playoffs are going to be Korean, and we see them play all the time, because that's the Korean fans know that their teams are the best, and so they're not going to have an opportunity to see a lot of other teams. And I think that's really legitimate. I think the other thing that is kind of lame is that when you announce that the World Championship is in a specific country, shouldn't most of the games being played be in that country? Because, for example, if we take 4 groups, double elimination round robin, that's 48 games that you're seeing, right, in group stage. Okay, in an 8-team single elimination bracket where all matches are best of 5, the maximum number of games that you can have is what, 35? 35. So, and that's if every series goes to game 5. So realistically, let's say 27 or 28, right? Seems pretty reasonable. Get some 3-1s in there, get some 3-0s, maybe a couple like full 5-game sets. That means that if we have 27 games, that means that nearly twice the number of games will occur outside of Korea as in Korea. And I don't think that it's right to announce that the tournament is happening in Korea when it's mostly not happening in Korea. In fact, potentially twice as much not happening in Korea. That's a little weird.
That's a key point to make, though. That's why this can definitely be criticized as a decision. No matter, even if it turns out, okay, Monte, it's correct that it's that in terms of the timing, people wouldn't have gone for the whole month anyway to Korea, and they wouldn't go.
Yep.
Maybe they'll get more viewers. So these are all good points, but at no point when you were explaining that did you give a good reason as to why that has to be announced a month and a half out from the tournament, 2 months out from the tournament. You could announce that on day one. Day one could be an announcement. The World Championships will be held with Korea as the host nation, but the group stages will be in these countries, and then people have to accept it from day one, okay? You don't announce that 2 months before.
Yeah, and I think the fans are justified in being angry about that.
I mean, we've made this point, I think, on this show before. Like, it doesn't make sense if esports is a real thing, which is, remember, what they're constantly telling us. If it's a real thing and League of Legends is going to be here next year, why can't we know things in advance? Why can't it be planned in advance? Even 6 months in advance, we're talking. We're not even saying like 4 years in advance. I have to, like, listen, by the way, for the World Cup, etc., we do know, like, 8 years in advance or something where the next 2 will be, We're just talking about, just tell us 6 months in advance when all these things will be in. Some logistics. You don't have to give us exact details, like what venue and stuff, but just tell us which country, what dates, something like that, so people can plan,
I agree, man. I think it's just another example, of which there are a million, of Riot announcing things too late, telling people too late, making a plan and not telling the right people that are involved. And they just, like, Riot likes to announce things and then figure out how they're going to accomplish these things after the announcement. And I think that's lame.
I mean, the reason why that's annoying, right? Here's actually the point, if you remember, where I got cut off on the last one we did, where I had to get the video edited, where I couldn't come up with my point. I remember what it was. It was going to be a joke. And I was going to make the joke when we were discussing Gambit and the problems that Riot had, where Riot had a couple of situations where they'd fucked things up for Gambit, where there's the SK game that got reversed and had to be played again, even though the rules weren't that. And not only that, but they sort of rewrote the rules on the fly to allow that to happen. And then secondly, there was a scenario with them not telling them in time to get the visa to go to London. The point I was going to make there, as a facetious point on one level, but as a real point on another, which is that Riot spend all their time telling you how every player who plays within their system must be a model professional, and he must do things perfectly inside and outside of the game, and he must represent esports and League of Legends to the maximum event. Well, okay, if you'd like that, Riot, then you must be judged by the same standard. And so if you yourself are not being a perfect professional, and so in terms of event organization, that would mean knowing all the teams can arrive, announcing in time for people to know where the event's going to be, giving people opportunity to know, like, can I attend this event or not? These are professionalism. This is professionalism within that aspect of the job. So my facetious joke was going to be, oh, if only teams like Gambit could fine Riot for being unprofessional. That would be the joke, you know. Like, Riot should have to pay them $2,000 more salary because they've been unprofessional. That's a joke on one level, but it's also a serious point, you know. If you want to talk about professionalism and make this guy who's 17 and is doing his first job be a model professional, well, then how about these guys who've worked in esports for 4 or 5 years and this is their job doing this event? Maybe they should be held by a professional standard, right? That's not unfair.
I agree, and I think that they want to be taken seriously. I brought this point up earlier as a professional league, but part of that is maintaining competitive integrity and, you know, backing up what your announcements are with the action itself. And I think that's really disappointing. And like I said, it doesn't really matter to me personally whether most of the games are held in Korea or elsewhere. But I understand why people would be mad about that. And I don't think that the best action was taken from Riot. And I think that, you know, then we have all these, like, letters from Mark Merrill, the president, that are getting translated into Korean. And then this is not a small thing, especially in Korea. It's huge. The president, like the chairman of KeSPA, who is a senator in the Korean government, wrote an extensive letter in response to this. Like, can you imagine, like, in America, like a state senator, you know, writing about, like, what Riot's president is saying? This is massive. KeSPA is part of the Korean government. Like, why would you fuck around with KeSPA like this? It's not smart for what's going on in Korea and for maintaining the relationships that exist here. It's different. Like, I don't think Riot understands the gravity of what they have done. It is not the same in Korea as it is in other countries. The government is involved. You need the government's help to get the World Cup stadium. You need, if a senator is writing to you about your decision, that's serious. That's serious fucking business.
What was beautiful as well was the way KeSPA phrased their statement on it, when that, like, the comments about it, was they actually, some people didn't pick up on this, but Riot's official statement, remember, was that, listen, we'd always planned to do this, actually. This was our plan. We're sorry that you guys didn't understand that this was our plan. Maybe it was our fault for miscommunicating our plan, but remember, guys, it was always our plan. Then KeSPA sort of came out and said, like, nah, they just changed their mind in, like, March, and then said, like, we have to put up with it, so I guess we do. Which is sort of like, well, which one of you is telling the truth? Is KeSPA just lying? Or
KeSPA loves to do things. Like, KeSPA is equally guilty of, like, the same things. Like, last year, you know, at the Champions Summer Final, the chairman of KeSPA, like, Worlds is in Korea next year. And Riot was like, whoa, what? Like, you know, he was just, like, randomly announcing things too. Like, I mean, KeSPA is definitely not free of blame, as we know in esports history. Sure. Like, KeSPA's messed up many, many times. But it is really dangerous. Like, as incompetent as KeSPA can be sometimes, although they've gotten a lot better, I would say, recently. We know what happens when a game publisher fucks with KeSPA. Blizzard tried to fuck with KeSPA. I mean, that worked out really poorly for StarCraft. Really poorly, right? That was a disaster that we're still dealing with. Don't fuck with KeSPA. Don't do it. And I think this is a symptom of people who have never been to Korea or who don't understand the Korean esports ecosystem, like trying to pull one over. But while any other country in the world, you probably could have pulled this over without a lot of, sound and fury. In Korea, you can't.
You know what, Monte? We always make them. People might think we make the mistake on this show where if we criticize someone, we don't suggest the alternative, And so it's very easy to say that's wrong, but if there's not a solution, then it's like, well, you're in the same boat as that guy. Like, no one knows what to do. So I'll actually be fair here, and I'll give Riot some tips here on what they could do. Because when I think of Riot's dealings with Korea, it reminds me of during the... you remember when America first went into Afghanistan at the beginning of the last decade? And when they went in, part of the reason why it was a train wreck and things were going badly, and then they went into Iraq and it was similar problems, is that you remember all these stories that came out about how Bush and members of his cabinet didn't understand almost anything about like Middle Eastern and Arab culture. Like they didn't even, supposedly Bush didn't even understand that like there were different types of Muslim. He thought they were all just like Arabs and Muslims. He didn't understand that like there's different factions within them that have like totally philosophical differences. And if you remove some of the military from one area, then some of them will have like an uprising and try and fight the other ones, and they'll try and take land for them, and they don't want to live in the same. And even though technically they're in one country, these people don't want to live in a country with them. So the key thing is they could have made their whole lives and plan a lot better if they just learned a bit about the culture before they went blazing in there with, boots on the ground. I could actually tell Riot right now, because I did this. When I wanted to know more about Korean players in League of Legends and StarCraft, I didn't just watch Korean games and go, oh, I wonder why they do that. I actually bought some books that were about the Korean mind and the psychology of how their culture's set up and how people are supposed to think and how you're supposed to behave in this way. And I bought a book about the history of Korea to tell me like how the Industrial Revolution had happened there in terms of like computers and technology and making them like a first world sort of level country. And by reading these things, I actually learned more about the players than I did from watching the games. I learned a bit from the games, but all the things I took from this, I could then apply to every Korean person I met and perhaps get like a read on them that I couldn't have had before. Whereas I get the sense, unfortunately, that a lot of the people who are the Riot guys are just coming in with none of that background knowledge. They don't really have much knowledge there.
Well, why this is actually surprising is because Riot is very trusting in the local office, Riot Korea, and they generally just like Riot Korea has a large degree of autonomy. And to Riot's credit, they have done almost everything right in Korea. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the game, what the problem with StarCraft 2 and why it never really caught on was that you had to buy the game in order to be able to play it at a PC bong. Whereas in what League of Legends, so old StarCraft 1, it was just mass pirated, so everybody played it, right? Sure. But League of Legends, based on a microtransaction system, what Riot has done is that if you go play in a PC cafe, in a PC bong here, all the champions are unlocked, right? You get access to every single champion in the game. And so it's easy for people to go into a PC bong, try out the game, try out every character. They'll still buy skins for their characters or whatever. You still have your account. You go home, you only have the champions you have unlocked. But it made it so people would go to PC bongs, hang out with their friends, make it a social experience. And they did an absolutely amazing job of attracting Koreans and applying League of Legends to Korean culture, right? And then they did it again. They don't try and run their own league in Korea. They give it to OGN, who is a television station here. Riot can't just like make a TV station in Korea for their own game. So they find the right partner to work with. OGN is trustworthy. OGN does a great job of running the Korean leagues. Everything is fine. So this is actually, surprisingly, I think, the first poor decision Riot has made when it comes to Korea. Because generally they've been quite smart, which is why this is confusing. Because in the past, they have demonstrated that they understand, or at least let Riot Korea make the proper decisions.
Okay, I think we've pretty much wrapped everything up now. It's like the longest show ever. As usual, no final words. We just end and then we just drop the mic and walk off, right, Monte?
Yep. Waiting for sOAZ to shit on me at Worlds.
Okay, on that note.